Yeah, we're off. Hi, guys.
I'm your host, Doug Hamp. Glad to be with you. Hey, if you want to be a producer for the show, go to patreon.com/Doug Hamp. Give whatever you want, maybe like, a coffee a day or something like that. Makes a huge help. You can be part of this show. You can be part of getting the word out on what God is doing, what's happening in the world, looking at the signs and all kinds of stuff. Oh, and by the way, a little disclaimer here. We don't promise to have any answers, but we're going to have a great conversation. Today we are talking about
Hi,
solar
Diane.
eclipse and
Hi, Tracy.
the
Good to see you,
CERN
Trace.
gods. And Joel is here with me. He is going to take us through a bunch of stuff. Now, I'm going to be the devil's advocate. I'm going to say, yes. And he's going to share why, maybe the whole April 8th eclipse might be something. So, Joel, I'm looking forward to this. Scott's going to be here in just a couple of minutes. But
Okay.
yeah, so, get us started. I think this will be a really interesting discussion today. So, take
First
it
of
away,
all,
man.
I'm going to
You
throw it
are
out
muted.
to everyone. Oh, I'm muted? Oh, okay. How did that happen?
I heard him just a second ago. Isn't that amazing?
How about
I'll
now?
tell you.
Can you hear me now?
That's how it goes when you do live stuff.
Oh, no.
But yeah, he and I were talking just
Oh,
a second ago.
man,
and I
that's
heard
not
him
what I
just fine.
thought.
So I'm not quite sure what's happening. I don't know if that's on my side or your side there, Joel. Okay,
Can you hear me now?
go ahead. No,
Can you? No?
try again. Still
Hello.
don't hear you. Wow, this is weird.
All right, I'm going to
Well,
click out.
okay, don't know what to say about that. Everything was working. Now it's not. So wonderful. Joel, check your settings. Maybe we'll see what we can do here. It was working, everybody. We promise it was working.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Try it again.
Well,
Hey, Susan. Good to see you.
yeah, that's strange. I'm not sure what to say,
now?
and this was going to be Joel's thing, so now I'm kind of like, oh no, what do I do? All right, well, okay, so we got April 8th coming up. A lot of people believe that this is going to be a something. So I'm going to take the skeptic's perspective. All right, and in fact, I was just reading an article today talking about how some people believe, a lot of Christians, of course, believe that the April 8th eclipse is going to be something. All right. So, is it really there? So, Joel's going to, show us a little bit of sign that.
Yeah, I'm good, Susan. I'm always good. Thanks for asking.
And I'm not disputing that it is.
And you'll notice I finally got my voice back.
Many eclipses. I went and saw the one in 2017. It was really a spiritual experience, I have to say. It was amazing. I went and saw it in the epicenter. Now, if you are planning on looking at this, you say, oh, I can see it from my place 90%. No, it's not the same. It's got to be 100% or nothing. All right. It's interesting when the sky gets dark, but it's a totally different experience when you actually see the eclipse 100%. All right. Because something mysterious happens. The animals get really quiet. The lights come on the streets. It really feels like it's night. And to be able to look up at the sun and see the corona, right? The sun that we see there every day is not really there, right? It's being blocked out perfectly by the moon. Now, it's funny for people that are skeptics when it comes to believing that.
Gigabyte, when you finish painting it, put it up on your channel and I'll show the guys.
There is a God. You would think that just understanding how perfectly aligned the Bible, or excuse me, how the moon is just perfect set, perfect shape from the distance of the sun. That seems more than just a coincidence, right? I mean, it's just perfect so that you can see the corona, and that has allowed us to do all kinds of study about the sun thanks to these different eclipses. So if you do have a chance, I would recommend going and seeing it, but you have to do it 100%. If you're going to, think you can see 80% or 90% and be impressed, you won't. All right. It'll be like, oh, okay, that was interesting, but it's not the same thing. There's just something really amazing when, you start hearing the crickets come out, the birds get quiet, Like the whole ambiance changes when you have it at 100%. All right. Well, I see that Scott is here, and hopefully Joel was able to.
Can you hear me
working.
now?
Still can't hear him. Can you hear me?
We can
Okay,
hear
I
him.
can hear. I'm the problem because I can't hear you.
Oh,
well, take
can
it
the
away,
people hear
Joel.
me?
I'm going to see if I can't figure out why
Okay,
I can't
so
hear you.
somebody
Maybe that's
answer in
problem.
the comments. Can you hear me?
Yeah, they can.
No, I know you can, but can they?
They can. I'm reading the comments.
Okay, there you go. All right, I hadn't moved it. Okay, so bottom line is that I'd like all of the guests tonight to comment back. If I don't cover everything, or at least most of the things, then I'd
Yeah.
like you to make a comment to me, Joel.
Yeah, Tracy, she's quite the artist, isn't she? You're a good artist, Gigabyte. When you finish your painting, put it on your channel and I'll show the guys.
You missed it. Joel, you didn't understand this. And keep in mind that Doug and I talked beforehand, and this could be a big nothing burger. It could be, but it's very interesting. There's so many things involved that we should at least study it and be aware of the things going on. So let's hope that I can start clicking through the slides here and move forward. So the main thing is I wasn't paying much attention to this. Then I posted the video and I realized, oh, people love this. And then I saw CERN starting up. And then I saw that there were some other key players from over the last 150 years that seem to be involved in this. And then you look out and you see the Devil Comet showing up during this time frame, which is Pons 12P, and the solar eclipse, of course, and CERN, then the NASA launch, and then the National Guards being called out, and the cicadas. And I mean, it's just so many different things going on. You have to be aware of that. So the main thing is God tells us that he will give us these lights in the dome of the sky to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs. That's otot in the Hebrew, and seasons, moedim, which is our festivals and days and years and things like that. That's Genesis 1:14 through 15. Then also keep in mind that when Yeshua was
Hey, Phil,
birthed,
good to see you, bro.
there was a star which they had seen in the east that went in front of them until it came and it stopped over the place where the child was. And they saw the star and they were overjoyed. So that's Matthew 7, or Matthew 2, rather, verse 7. And so these magi seemed to recognize that the stars meant something. And if you look at Luke 21:25, I'll just read it real quick just so you're aware of the verse. So Luke 21:25, there will be signs in the sun, the moon, and the stars, and on the earth distress among the nations, confused by the roaring of the sea, which is generally the people and the waves. And the people will faint in fear. So keep in mind, these signs seem to have meaning. So, and then Doug didn't agree with me, but this is from Amos 8, and it talks about an eclipse. When that time comes, says Adonai Elohim, I will make the sun go down at noon and darken the earth in broad daylight. Now, is that related to this eclipse coming up on the 8th? Probably not, but it's just interesting that when that time will come in the future, he'll warn us with an eclipse. Very interesting. And I'll give you enough information that you'll get the general feel of this. So once again, this eclipse is occurring on Nisan 1, which is a V1. And based on how I test things out with Deborah's date tree, and then, oh goodness, why am I blanking on Yoel Halevi and other people like that, that the Aviv, the barley, the heads are right, and we'll be able to go into that barley harvest. So we should be starting the springtime of the year, and that is called Nisan in the standard Hebrew name, but also it's called Aviv in the Torah. And so that starts on the 8th, and it's very interesting. So you can only have a solar eclipse on a new moon, and you can only have a full moon eclipse during the full moon, which would be, halfway through the month. And Psalm 81:3 talks about, that you're supposed to acknowledge the new moon and the full moon and things like that. So just keep that in mind. It's an interesting time frame. We're watching it. Once again, Nisan 1 is the time of Exodus 40, when Moses erects the wilderness, Bamidbar, Mishkan, which is the tabernacle out in the wilderness there. And so it was time to sanctify the holy items. And there's a whole lot going on in Israel right now. We'll get to that in the later slides about the red heifer and everything like that. So the sages have taught over the millennia this is from Sukkah 29a, that what causes a solar eclipse affects the Gentiles more because the Gentiles reckon by the
Wow.
sun and the solar eclipses. So it would be a bad omen for the entire world if the sun is eclipsed. On the other hand, if the moon is eclipsed, the Jews should be looking at that. Israel should be looking at that and being aware of that. So the main thing is
Well, Diane, that link was pretty heavy, wasn't it?
we are going through an eclipse of the sun, and that means that it relates more to Gentiles and to not to Israel as much. So we'll see. We'll see what it means. And also, as Doug had mentioned beforehand, there's the 400 nature. Tav in our Hebrew language, so we go Aleph to the Tav. Tav is the last letter. That's a 400 in our gematria, we call it. And so the sun, well, the moon is 400 times smaller than the sun and 400 units further away, so they can eclipse each other, and so one will pass in front of the other and the other will pass in front of the other. And it's just interesting how these eclipses mark time, and God warned us again in Genesis 1 that this would matter to us. So once again, we've seen the 7 Salems during the 2017 eclipse, 8 Ninevehs this time around. Nineveh is Jonah, and it's an interesting sign. And then there's an interesting history. 1803, we had the cicadas, and so now we're going to have 13 and 17 year cicada broods popping up in April 24 of 24. So just interesting, and in the Little Egypt area. Scott, do you have anything to jump in on? And I see Doug. Do I need to let you guys in?
No.
Okay, just should I continue on?
Please.
Okay, all right, let's go on. Okay, so we have had 8 eclipses so far in our country, 7 technically. We're going to have we've had the 8th in 2017, and they were related to war. So this is from Mark Biltz, and he cited, in 1778 and 1780, it was an eclipse that was around the Revolutionary War. Then the 1860s was the Civil War. And then the 1970s was the Vietnam War. So they're generally related to war. I'm not saying that we're going to have a war, but everybody across the world right now is talking about war. So I sensed that World War III would happen at the tail end of the 7 years. But, there are war drums beating every day of the week. So it's just interesting to note this once again, Mark Biltz. Continuing on, it's intriguing that it was 6 years, 6 months, 6 weeks, and 6 days between the eclipses from 2017 to 2024.
Wow. Let's hear them numbers again.
But, there are war drums beating every day of the week. So it's just interesting to note this once again, Mark Biltz. Continuing on, it's intriguing that it was 6 years, 6 months, 6 weeks, and 6 days between the eclipses from 2017 to 2024. And
that is stunning, guys. I never knew that. Wow.
So for those of you that are wondering, it's physically possible for us to have 3 days of darkness at some point in time. The sun could potentially micronova, which would not be a full nova. It would just be where, this is going to sound really weird, but it would be like goat hair affixing to the sun and then blasting off and causing a micronova. And it's physically possible. We're starting to prove that this has happened about every 12,000 years in our cycles on the Earth. So the sun has done this before, and there seems to be a dust cloud heading at the sun right now. So we may have 3 days of darkness at some point in time. Okay, continuing on, the eclipses are going to cross near Little Egypt, which is really weird. I mean, how does this work out? Little Egypt, and so the cities' names are named after Carmi and Cairo and Thebes and Karnak and Goshen and Dongola. I mean, it's just weird how it's Little Egypt where it's crossing. So many interesting points that you have to cite them all. And if I'm missing anything, people, go ahead and tell me in the comments section. Okay, so once again, some of the Ninevehs don't match, but generally it's going across a bunch of Ninevehs, and that's a sign of Jonah. So basically, I'll get to Jonah in the next slide, but the main thing is that Congress passed a really bad spending bill, and then they took a break until the 9th of April after the eclipse. Okay, and one more time, this is a picture of Nineveh in these 7 states. Very interesting. Okay, so here's Jonah. What we seem to believe now is that there was an eclipse in 763 BCE. 3 months later, Jonah arrived. So they had this big sign, and it was probably a very interesting eclipse that scared them half to death. And so by the time he showed up and he said, it's time to repent, they did. The intriguing thing is everyone from the king down to the commoner, they all repented, put on sackcloth. Can you imagine the United States repenting at this point in time?
No.
I can't imagine it.
No.
Okay, this is from Michael Snyder. We had him on the show a few weeks ago, and I think he got the information from Rachel Baxter, who was also on the show. And so he's saying that if you look at it, historically speaking, in 1806, there was a total solar eclipse that crossed North America from Baja, California to Massachusetts. Then in 1811, there was another solar eclipse that occurred on Constitutional Day. And then
7 years apart, look at that.
And the crossing point was Cleveland. And then what happened in 1811 and 1812 was the greatest earthquake in the history of the United States. And you could hear the bells ring in Boston, that far away from the New Madrid. So New Madrid is basically south of St. Louis by about probably 100 miles. And so that is a fault line that's active to this day. And also there was a comet, Tecumseh's comet came through also. It comes through every 3,065 years. And so these signs are rather interesting, people. So there were eclipses before the New Madrid earthquake. Let's go forward to 1963, and we have the Alaska solar eclipse, followed by the 1964 Alaska earthquake. And now, they weren't exactly about 80 miles to 100 miles apart from where the eclipse was and where the earthquake was, but that's still pretty close and pretty devastating. So whether one causes the other, I'm not saying that, but there seems to be some weird, interesting similarities between the two, okay? And this is from the University of Alaska, Anchorage. Okay, continuing on, the other things involved. The Aleph of the first eclipses, and I'm sorry, the slide is so small, but 2017 through 2021, 2023, and now 2024, you add them all together and you get an Aleph, a paleo Aleph. And if you just look at the 2 eclipses of 2017 and 2024, you get a Tav. The Aleph is the first letter of our Hebrew language, the Tav is the last, and as I mentioned, it's 400, which is interesting because the sun and the moon are 400 units apart and 400 sizes apart. So it's just very interesting how God made it that way as a sign for us. So the guy in the middle is Aleister Crowley. We'll cover that. It's going to get weird, people. He prophesied in 1904, and we'll cover that in a slide in just a minute here. The other thing is, look around you right now. Mark Zuckerberg and other billionaires are building bunkers, okay? And also there's a chicken plague going on right now. There are other, I read a report earlier today, and it was about someone trying to manufacture more plagues. And we've gone through it in 2020, and we don't want to go through it again, but somebody wants that to occur. The other thing is there are fault lines. There's the mid-continent fault line that seems to go across America, basically patterning Interstate 80. And then also there's this New Madrid fault line, and so they transverse each other. And so on the right-hand side, you can just see there's this crack, the 1,700-mile crack across that seems to be based off satellite data. That it's just very interesting. There are these prophecies over the last 50 to 100 years of the center of the country having to flood. And so once again, it's all circumstantial, but it's interesting. Continuing on, it's an eclipse, people, but look at this. No trucks are allowed in Texas on April 8th, okay? Why would a truck be a problem on April 8th?
Good question.
During the eclipse time frame. And no schools, many hundreds of schools on the path are closing down. Why? It's probably going to be very beautiful and interesting, scientific, but why close down? Doug, did you have a question?
Well, I mean, there's a very practical reason for not having people have trucks on the road, is that there's going to be lots and lots of visitors coming to these places. And so, I mean, I just read about a place that's, declaring a state of emergency, not because they think that the eclipse is going to do anything to us, but that all of the lookers are going to be just everywhere. I remember when I went to see it in 2017, I went to Nebraska. I forget which little town, but it was crowded. I mean, there were a lot of people, a lot of cars in this otherwise very, very small town, and so, it was just very congested, and I get it. I think there's a very practical reason. So just throwing some reason in there for us instead of,
It doesn't make sense, does it, Susan, that they're shutting schools down, trucks can't drive in Texas? What has that got to do with an eclipse? I've never heard this before.
Christine? Yeah, Scott, what were you going to say?
Down here in Alabama, I mean, we turn small towns into like 200,000 people attending on a weekend. That's just, but I guess if it's spread over a wide area of Texas, it would be hard to manage crowd control. But I think something's going to happen. I'm not saying it's April 8th. I'm not saying it's going to be Passover. Just like I felt something was going to go down during Feast of Tabernacles last year, and it did. I didn't know. I think something major is going to happen over the next 2, 3, 4 weeks, and I don't know what. I mean, I'm just watching. And like a lot of people making predictions, I'd rather just watch and get people just to, because I do believe, like, I think we can all on this panel 100% say the rapture is not happening.
Thank you. You answered that.
April the 8th. Yeah. It's not happening on April 22nd. It's not happening this fall. I mean, we still have to go through the period where we can't buy or sell, and it's not going to be a pretty time. It's not going to be Earth as normal. But I'm just thinking of just listening today. I mean, Iran and Israel, they're starting to ratchet up even more so than what's been happening over the last 6 months. You put it in the title. Joe CERN's doing something.
We'll get to that.
That's already a spooky, weird organization.
Yeah. I'll make it even more spooky.
and then you got a lot of the people that believe NASA's just a big lie, but they're firing rockets, to do some testing and stuff. So I don't think there's anything to the NASA thing. The CERN thing intrigues me.
It all is interesting, guys. And so let's continue on. And you guys jump in if you want to. And if you see some cool questions, jump in, please. Okay? Or questions or comments or anything like that. Okay, so buying extra groceries. They're literally telling us to buy extra groceries for this time frame. 4 states in the trajectory have urged residents to stock up on groceries and gas. Why? And this is from All News Pipeline. Here's on the other side, why has the National Guard been deployed to Texas for the upcoming solar eclipse? So this is Click to Houston, one of their local stations. Very interesting, So the National Guard being called out, and Doug, I see your point. It is going to be a lot of people, and they won't necessarily be orderly. So I get your point. Okay, so this is NBC News. When the solar eclipse arrives, New York prisons will be locked down. Well, the prisoners are suing. They want to go see the eclipse. So it's interesting. These are the Texas counties that are declaring an emergency over this eclipse: Bell County, Travis County, Kaufman County, and then Indiana, and then New York State, the whole Niagara region. And we'll get to a few more slides here, but in 1833, that upstate Niagara region was hit the most by falling debris. We'll call it asteroids, meteorites, whatever you want to call it. So it was very crazy. And that really kicked off that rapture hoopla of the Seventh-day Adventists, the Millerites, we'll call them, of 1843, 1844. So these meteorite storms, that was a big one, guys. And I'm not predicting a meteorite storm, but it gets people going. Okay, more. So this is horrible. Poor Texas. They're not going to have as much energy because the sun is going to be eclipsed. They'll lose 16% of their power, and they already lost many of their solar farms due to hail just a few weeks ago. News Talk 1290 AM talk.
Wow, I never thought about that. Hail destroying all the solar panels. Wow.
It's about that.
That's certainly a handicap, isn't it?
Well, you know, it's going to be horrible. And you know, there could be some other leaks and things like that from the panels. But then, so there's your 16%. And making the most of a volatile energy price situation, it's going to be intriguing. So that's CBS News telling us that this will affect poor Texas, you know, and other states. They're going to lose some power, especially Texas. They don't have the solar power already from their panels being broken. So one more sign. Now, I want to point this out as we move into this section of the slide. This is the area where Doug's the expert. And this has to do with Exodus 23:13. I'm going to read the names of these gods, small g gods.
And Susan, there's no way they can protect these solar panels from hail. It doesn't matter where they put them. If hail hits them, it's destroyed. And I can't see how they can protect them.
I'm going to spell them out, not say them, just because it says there. Pay attention to everything I've said to you. Do not invoke the names of other gods or even let them be heard crossing your lips. And the problem is that's what this whole section is about. So, and then he talks about the Sabbath and of course about the Moedim. So it's right between the Sabbath, Moedim. Don't invoke the names.
Yeah, Diane, the minerals that go into making them solar panels, they're a lot worse than the perpetual techno stuff, eh?
Of gods. And that's what everyone on the planet today is doing. So let's jump in. Well, that would be Thor on the left-hand side, Thor, I should say, and then Neptune on the right-hand side. And these are the movies today. This is all we generally see right now. And this is what's coming up as I discuss the eclipse. Okay, and more, I'm not even, you can read them, people, okay? These are the names of these movie gods, okay? And you know, it's weird how it's going to pop up going forward. You're going to notice it on April 8th. Once again, you can read through this yourself, the names of these ancient gods in all of these movies. Most of the movies right now are Marvel Comics and other people like that. And I don't go to movies anymore because it's all about the wrong gods and there's no research to be done there. You're not really reading anything historic, just their ideas. And Doug talks about Enlil all the time. He is the king of the gods. He's from Babylon. Well, if I want to study the solar CMEs and other solar activity, I have to go out and look at NASA's Enlil. Yeah, it's their way of studying the sun, and it's interesting. So that's one of the gods, and so with all of these activities going on, the sun has been very busy lately. So I'm constantly looking at this particular god, so to speak. Okay, and it's in 3D. Then there's another god.
Hey, Jay,
So
good to see you, mate. If you want to look at other astrophysical applications, you need to go out to ZEUS 3D, and it's an app that's been developed for them to be able to monitor other solar activities and give you a real-time view of what's going on with the sun and how much energy is being kicked out from a CME or other solar activities, coronal wind and things like that. This is going to get weird. Okay, so back in 1904, we have this creature named Aleister Crowley and his wife named Rose, and they got married, ran down for their honeymoon in Egypt, and she channeled a demon called AIWASS, okay? And they wrote their law. So we believe in the Torah and the Bible. They believed love is the law, love under will, but the problem is it's their will. And one of their strongest proponents was Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin. And Jimmy was deeply involved in this. He bought Aleister Crowley's former house in Scotland on, of all places, Lake Loch Ness. Go figure. And there's a picture of that particular demon that they channeled, and they wrote out this book of the law. Well, the weird thing is, that is 120 years ago, which is Genesis 6:3. Man's allotted 120 years of life. And they will be celebrating April 8th, 9th, and 10th. So my goal to remind you of is if they're feasting and they're worshiping their alien creature named AIWASS, we should be fasting. So many other people are coming out and saying, this is probably a good day to fast. I'm going to take off from work and I'll be fasting that day.
So it's just interesting that with all of these things going on, that there will be a huge satanic ceremony occurring from the 8th, the 9th, and the 10th, celebrating this particular god. And Aleister Crowley was generally considered to be the most evil man ever. He even takes out Hitler. More things, more things. Okay, so the devil comet. So basically, this comet, for some reason, hit something or something occurred to it. And so it developed little horns on its head. So it's Comet Pons 12P and Pons Brooks. And it's starting to get visible now, guys. And I'll show you that in the next slide. But also the cicadas. And so this is once per 221 years, a mating, feeding frenzy. They're noisy, they're kind of stinky, they're weird, and they're all popping up. So one more sign, and this is the area that they would pop up during that intersection point in Little Egypt. And it's just, it kind of reminds you of the locusts from the 8th plague in Egypt. It kind of does. So once again, there's the cross, that's Little Egypt, and the cicadas coming in 2024. It's 2 broods, very interesting. Noisy and strange, very strange to be popping up during the eclipse. And this is the New Madrid area. This is where the greatest earthquake occurred. Mississippi literally flowed north rather than south as this earthquake hit in 1811 and 1812. It is the largest earthquake ever in America. And it's interesting that that's where it's crossing, in that general vicinity where the eclipses are crossing. So one more interesting point. The planets are technically going to line up, but according to Ben Davidson, not actually in alignment when you realize how different their orbital distances are. So, do you remember Aquarius, Let the Sun Shine In? You guys are too young for that, but I remember it. I was a little kid. And, when the planets align, when the moon is this, it's all, you know what it is. And so it's rather interesting that you will be able to see the eclipse. You'll be able to see 12 Pons Brooks, 12P, and potentially see the planets align during the same time frame. I mean, guys, it's just bizarre. All of these things are all occurring like this.
Yeah,
and keep in mind, go.
I was just going to say the point that Rachel brought out, and I've seen other people that have posted that too. I mean, it's
Diane, with them links you're posting, I don't think we'll have time to see justice served on all these fake monkey works. I don't think we've got time left to see the people arrested and held responsible for that giant murderous campaign.
Again, let's go back to Genesis 1. The sun, the moon, the stars, the constellations were put there for signs. Now, I believe this is a sign. I believe that the 2017 eclipse and the blood moons in 14 were signs, but I believe they were warning signs. I believe this is a warning sign. But again, even though our friendly doctorate skeptic on the panel does not want to put too much faith in Yeshua returning after 2 days, I still believe that. I'm at 99.99%. I'm just not going to go to 100% and say, Yeshua will be back by 2034. Bank on it. Take it to, I'm putting my kingdom status. I'm just not going to do that. But that's why I think it's significant, Joel, is because we're about 1,994-ish years since Yeshua returned to his place. And this is not a new doctrine or people.
Yeah, I'm still friends with Marty on Facebook. Occasionally she posts stuff. Yeah, I remember Marty Eads.
Pre-existed Yeshua. The rabbis were teaching it. So anyway, that's why I think it's important. The timing and Doug probably just think it's coincidence that it's 6 years, 6 months, 6 weeks, and 6 days after the after the 2017.
It is, but it's just cool.
That's just a coincidence.
Hey, you can all tell me that I was, just a stick in the mud. That's fine. When something happens, you can tell me then. I don't know.
Are there any cool questions, Doug?
No, keep going. It's really good.
Okay, all right. Do you mind popping the screen back up? Okay. So the main thing is the moon sets off our tides. So, based on where the moon is in its cycles and things like that. Well, can you imagine if these planets line up, there might be some tidal changes and there could be some earthquakes. I'm not saying that we're going into the 7 years, but it's just interesting to note that the planets might cause some tidal changes, some flooding, some interesting things. Okay, we'll just call it that. Okay, then keep in mind during the time that you're going to be watching this eclipse and all the other things in the sky, you might see a star explode and it will be visible in the night sky. So this is a star, you know, millions of miles away, but for some odd reason, this nova could be visible. And this is from March 16th. It looks like we might see this occur. It's due in the next 4 months, they assume. And we're seeing more of the micronova. So keep in mind, the micronova would just be dust accumulating on a sun, our sun, any sun, and then an explosion in one little section, okay? Full nova would be the sun exploding, and so this one seems to be a full nova, okay? Continuing on, asteroids fly by all the time, and so I wanted to mention, here's the picture down below the asteroid there in the middle. That's 1833, that's Niagara Falls, and there were tons of asteroids falling, meteorites falling during that time frame. That's what kicked off that odd time when you had technically all three groups there. You had the Millerites, you had the Seventh-day Adventists that became, the Millerites became the SDAs generally. And then you had the Mormons in that same vicinity of upstate New York, and you had the Jehovah's Witnesses. They didn't officially start until 1859, but it just kicked off this eschatological frenzy in upstate New York. So the meteorites tend to do that with people. And then once again, this is 12P ponds, and it is then over a lighthouse in Michigan. They kind of had to do a composite photo, but it's really going to be pretty if you can see that during the eclipse. And then we are in the midst of 3 permanent eclipses in a row. Now, it's a slight eclipse in this year, in 2024. It will be a full eclipse next year in 2025, and then 2026. And so it's interesting. Purim is that time frame when the Jews are attacked by Haman and his followers, and they get to fight back. And there's Esther, there's Mordecai, and things like that. And so we hope that this is a sign, if it is, that the Jews will win this war right now, because Iran, which is that Haman area, you know, it's Susa, basically, is making war drums against Israel right now. So it's just interesting to note that we're having 3 eclipses in a row, and this is from Supernatural by Design. I'm blanking on his name, but I like him, but he predicts rapture dates all the time. Okay, then you have to be aware of this too. So Ali Khamenei from Iran was born on an eclipse in 1939. Bibi Netanyahu was born on an eclipse in 1949. And he was born during the time frame of the blood moon eclipses from 49 to 50. It's just, I realize it's a preponderance of interesting information. There's nothing, Doug can't write a PhD thesis on this, but it's interesting, guys. Okay, then now we're getting into CERN. Okay, this comes from Jim Staley, and I don't know if he found it or he found somebody that found it, but basically, this is so weird, guys. So CERN is located in a city called Saint-Genès-Poli in Switzerland, and it looks like it came from the Latin term Apolliacum, and that's Apolloa. Yes, that is that god, the Latin god, the Roman god, and you know who he is. And this city was built in about 45 to 55 Common Era, and it looks like it was a gate to the gods. And I'll show you the slide in a little bit. There is a reason to believe that it's a potential gate to the gods. So I'll show you the slide and you'll be amazed. So I want to quote this to you so that you're aware that we're all looking forward to this at some point in time, not exactly with bated breath, but we're looking forward to it. The 5th angel sounded the shofar, and I saw a star that had fallen out of the heaven onto the earth, and he was given a key to the shaft leading down to the abyss. He opened the shaft of the abyss, and there went up smoke from the shaft, like the smoke of a huge furnace, and the sun was darkened, and the sky too, by the smoke of the shaft. They had as a king over them the angel of the abyss, and in Hebrew, his name is Abaddon. In our language, he is the destroyer, and that is Apollo. Sorry, I'll say the word. So it's just interesting how, there it is in the text, and we'll get to the next slide. Oh, I'm sorry, it's the next one after this. So CERN, of all times, it's been dormant for a couple of years here, and they're kicking up April 8th, of all times. So why? Why would they? And the main thing is, why during that time frame? Why in this location? Why honoring their God from that particular location? Let's just quote Sergio Bertolucci. Out of this door might come something, or he might send something through it. And there have been some people talking about apparitions there, and something weird going on there. And so it's going to restart, and it's going to be colliding at that point in time. And let's get to the next slide so you can see the ring. This is so bizarre. Even Doug will be wondering about this one. So it's a circle. It was first a smaller circle. Now it's going to be a bigger circle. It's set up to honor the god Apollo, okay, in Switzerland. It is set up to be a gate of the god, because that's what the temple was there, and built in like 45 Common Era. And it's a circle where they send the beams around clockwise, then they send around counterclockwise, and they smash into each other. And I believe they're trying to open up portals. Now, this is where it gets really, really weird because you can't write this stuff. So Obama made a movie called Leave the World Behind. And he made this movie just a few months ago. And this is a screenshot from that movie where you have the two kids in Aleister Crowley's
Shawnee,
tool
we missed
shed,
ya.
which I can't even tell you what goes on or what went on in Aleister Crowley's tool shed, but you can guess with the kids there what happened. So that's Aleister Crowley on the left-hand side saying obey his thelema, laws, things like that. And on the right-hand side, it's the kid wearing the NASA shirt. And it's been choreographed. So it's just bizarre, guys. I mean, go figure that they would make this movie from Obama that would highlight CERN and highlight Leave the World Behind. And it's just bizarre. Okay, wow. So once again, it's going to be the first.
And Obama went and met the British Prime Minister last week.
Collisions of proton beam.
What the hell is Obama doing at the British Prime Minister's house?
Are expected on April 8th, okay? And that's from one of our scientific friends called Nick Hiff. And then on the right-hand side, the accelerator report that they're going to gear up after their yearly break. They call it a maintenance break. And so, yeah, it's kicking off the 2024 particle season. Just bizarre. Why now? Why April 8th? Yeah. Why? Opening up portals? Maybe. And then...
Diane, is that in reference to the Antichrist and a cup of tea? I'm pretty sure it is. Well said.
This is going back to 2009 when they first opened it up. They sent Tom Hanks over there and other famous actors, and they had Goat Boy, and they had, we'll call him Azazel, and Sex Magic and other things like that going on. There's ceremonies.
They invited Sean Griffin.
What?
They invited Sean Griffin from Kenan in Context. Goat Boy.
No, they had Tom Hanks there and other famous people. I mean,
okay, but you said Goat Boy.
Goat Boy. Oh, yeah. That was from Saturday Night Live. That is so funny.
No. Goat Boy is from mine and Doug's debate conversation we had with Sean, and Sean teaches that Yeshua is the eternal sacrificer of celestial goats. So in the community, we now call him Goat Boy.
Okay. All right. Doug, you're way in. Let it go so far. Way in with Doug.
Keep going.
This is, I mean, it's all very, very weird stuff that they were doing at CERN. There's no question about that. You know, whether it's a gate to the gods, I don't know, but it is incredibly strange, the symbology that they decided to throw in there for some odd reason, you know. Yeah, so go on. It's really interesting.
It's bizarre. So once again, we have the Azazel, the Baphomet creature. We have that. The horns are always involved, but also CERN's major logo is this goddess, and I'm blanking on her name right now, but basically that'll be the next slide. And so she is the emblem of them, and she's the god of destruction. I'll explain that in the next slide. But that's what
Well, Shawnee, have you got a link to that?
CERN looks like next to her. So you can see the type and shadows between the two of them. Once again, you know, the planets are starting to align. And then I mentioned the fifth dimension when the planets align,
Wow.
it seems to be a time for the pagans to celebrate. So here it is, SHIVA, and she is
Yes,
their
the link, please.
spokesmodel, you know, and it's just weird, you know. And then the 666 symbol of CERN. If you break those figurines apart, you will see a 666 in there. And so here it is. So SHIVA, the great destroyer, destined to annihilate the cosmos at the end of time, then reborn as part of the endless cycle and death and rebirth. I can't write it like that, guys. I mean, that's just bizarre that would be their symbol, that they're trying to remake the cosmos. Very weird. Okay. So, and Carl Sagan was involved in this too. All the famous people just love it. Their cosmic dance of the whatever, you know, it's just weird. The cosmic dance of subatomic particles. Okay. And now we get into Tom Horn. And Tom Horn had a dream years ago where God messaged him and said, there will be a certain comet coming towards the Earth in 2029, and he called it APOPHIS. Well, that is actually an ancient Egyptian god, APEP. And I don't know, Doug, have you ever studied that at all?
Yeah, actually, this is the very god that the Egyptians suggested was the god that they were fighting when the Israelites were leaving. So they ascribed, you know, that god to actually Yehovah. So it gets a little bit, you know, it gets a little bit contorted when you're trying to understand who's who and who thinks what, you know. So, but they thought this was their enemy god. So, it's worth. Yeah.
Okay. So basically, NASA is saying we just want to send up sounding rockets so that we can test out what's going on electrically and in the physics world. So they're going to send up these rockets, but why name them APOPHIS? Why? And they're going to send them up on April 8th, 3 times during the day. And so here it is on the right-hand side, these never-ending battles between the god Ra and the indestructible APOPHIS in ancient Egyptian beliefs. So this,
and you know, and so if I mean, I don't know. I know you don't want to say the names, but it's hard to talk.
It's hard. I know.
You know, but I think, you know, Ra is certainly the bad guy, and Apophis, I think, because the Egyptians think he's the bad guy, and they actually ascribe him to being a serpent standing on his tail, a fiery red serpent standing on his tail at the Exodus, the parting of the waters, which they have in all of the Egyptian tombs of the pharaohs, which is wild to think about that, right? Then, you know, I think that's probably the good guy, right? That's actually Yehovah right there, and
Sure.
Ra is certainly the bad guy, you know. And so what's funny is, you know, a lot of the things that you're talking about, I'm actually going to be talking, you know, we put into Regenesis code, you know, the story Regenesis code, and you know, so we're speculating on some of these things, and it's certainly fun to speculate, and you know, we'll have to wait and see what happens when it all comes down. So this is fascinating.
Okay, then we continue on. So it's known. So APAP. I'm sorry, I said it. The great serpent, the enemy of the sun god Ra. In ancient Egyptian religion, the sun was Ra's great barge, which sailed through the sky from dawn to dusk and then descended into the underworld. As it sailed through the darkness, it was attacked by APOPHIS, who sought to kill RA and prevent sunrise. It's just interesting when you compare that with what NASA is sending up to, check out the solar eclipse. It's just, you can't write these scripts this way. Yeah, the second round of these rockets launches are scheduled for the total eclipse of April 8th, and they're sent out of Virginia, which is interesting. They'll be collecting data to answer the following scientific questions. Does the eclipse shadow directly seed discernible irregularities in the mid-latitude ionosphere? Well, and okay, so let's have some fun with this. We know that our magnetosphere is thinning. We know that ozone layer is thinning. Not CERN, but how about NASA and ESA, European Space Agency, have been documenting this for years, and then they stopped documenting it. So we believe that that area that protects us from asteroids, meteorites, and from UV is thinning probably 25% now since 1859 when we had the Carrington event. So it's interesting to note that your solar storms are going to get worse. And so NASA needs to test that out. And I hope they'll give us a report back on this and say, here.
They're not going to give you a report back on this. You don't know the same NASA we know.
Is what the ozone layer is like. And the sun causes that layer to thin. So you can't blame that on mankind. So once again, Tom Horn, interesting story. Nice gentleman. He did a phenomenal job on the Petrus Romanus. I've read most of his books, and that one was exceptional. I'm a huge fan of Chris Putnam when he was alive, and I thought they did very great research on that. So anyway, this asteroid is supposed to hit then April 13th of 2029.
I'll play that Biden link after this one, guys. That looks interesting that he said that.
I don't know. So let's pretend that just by conjecture, we started out sometime late in 2025. That'd be about the midpoint, And I was a huge guy thinking 2017 was going to kick things off. And then 2023, assuming that Yeshua died in 30 Common Era. Well, it looks like I've been wrong every single time. So, this
or we're actually in the final 7 years, and the Jesuits did a masterful job of infiltrating the Protestant church, and we all believe that the 70th week is yet future. So a lot of people are looking for a covenant with the many to start this 7-year period. And again, I've said I have not ruled out 2027 until we get past Passover. If we make it past Passover, nothing major happens. I think then we can cross that date. In other words, reverse engineer this as opposed to setting a date and then having to revamp it. But when 2020 happened, I've always thought 2027 was 1 year too early, even with the wiggle room. But again, it could be that you're not wrong, Joel. It could be that you might have an incorrect understanding of Daniel 9:27. Again, maybe my understanding is saying one of us or both of us has.
We're going to be wiggling a lot. All of us are going to be adjusting.
and I like you because everybody throws out false teacher all the time. You're not being a false teacher tonight just because somebody differs with you. You may be incorrect.
Turn your vehicle into a moneymaker. Sign up and deliver Amazon packages with Amazon Flex.
Get babies safely on board with Baby Bunting Sale. Save $350 off the Infosecure Emerge Caprice car seat.
The Obama-Biden administration, but before that, she was an ambassador in the Obama-Biden administration.
Well, in case you had any doubt who's really running the country, a little Freudian slip by Biden today.
I mean, if he's not capable of making executive decisions, who's doing it for him? Okay, so today, as you all saw just an hour or so ago, President Obama announced that, pardon me, President Biden.
Did I say that out loud?
Wow.
Okay, so today, as you all saw just an hour or so ago, President Obama announced that, pardon me, President Biden.
Wow.
Did I say that out loud?
President Obama announced that, pardon me, President Biden. Whoa. That is news.
Even Jen was doing this last year.
For weeks, fewer Americans filed initial claims for unemployment insurance than any time in recorded history. Since President Biden took office, Biden.
It also makes you wonder who's running the show. I mean, if he's not capable of making executive decisions, who's doing it for him?
People would ask.
Okay, guys, I got to watch copyright on that. So, yeah, that was heavy. Okay, where was
we? Right? Or we put in our
When
password.
we buy Bitcoin, we need our keys.
Oh, man. How far are we into this? An hour and a half? We're an hour and a half into it. Okay, there. Hang on, I'm trying to find out where I were, guys. Okay, we're at an hour and 36 minutes, so it should be one. I think it's around there.
For a covenant with the many to start the 7-year period. And again, I've said I have not ruled out 2027 until we get past Passover. If we make it past Passover, nothing major happens. I think then we can cross that date. In other words, reverse engineer this as opposed to setting a date and then having to revamp it. But when 2020 happened, I've always thought 2027 was 1 year too early, even with the wiggle room. But again, it could be that you're not wrong, Joel. It could be that you might have an incorrect understanding of Daniel 9:27. I mean, again, maybe my understanding is saying one of us or both of us has.
We're going to be wiggling a lot. All of us are going to be adjusting.
And I like you because everybody throws out false teacher all the time. You're not being a false teacher tonight just because somebody differs with you. You may be incorrect. You could be wrong. I think it's when it's false is when you know it's false and you're trying to sell books or you're trying to make money and you're not being true to what you actually believe. But I find all this stuff fascinating myself. So I mean, and I just don't think it's coincidence that it's lining up with everything else that's happening it appears to start to happen. I mean, we got a powder keg right now in Russia and in Israel and in Iran. I mean, it's a powder keg, and in China. So this is not.
How about the Taiwan earthquake? And China said, we'll send soldiers to Taiwan to help you clean up the mess. We'll send 100,000 soldiers over there to help you out, guys. China, great guys.
Yeah. So, but again, don't just because there was.
Guys, when you hang up, you can go to your channel and check your live stream, and it says if there's any copyright warnings. Straight away, the copyrights don't come up. But with an hour or two of hanging up, they'll show up. So I'll just keep on top of it. And if it shows up, because this is a long show, and it's Mike from around the world, and I want to try and leave this one up because this should get a lot of views because of the info on it.
Not some peace treaty signed this past fall in 2023. In other words, I haven't crossed off 2028 or 2029 or 2030. But again, and our friend John Howler says this a lot, the logistics of this, it's not going to, I think they're going to have everything in place, because Satan, the beast, they're not omniscient beings. They're not omnipotent. They're going to have to use technology and the system that's being implemented and built right now for him to have that kind of control.
It's glaring up.
To your point about the technocrats. So again, I don't. I just you know, don't stand. I don't know, guys. It's just
Thanks,
don't beat yourself up for being wrong. You could have been right. You know. So we're just have to wait and see.
Oh, okay. All right. Tom Horn kind of linked that APOPHIS asteroid with the bitterness, the wormwood from basically it's when they came to the bitter waters of Mara in Exodus, and then also with Revelation. Then that would be, I'm a blank here. Revelation chapter 8 should be the third trumpet. Okay, so it's rather interesting. I'm not saying that that is wormwood, but it's an interesting connection there. But Tom Horn did say he thought that it was wormwood. So that's his opinion. Okay, this is from Mark Belts again, and he's talking about anti-Semitism, ethnic cleansing, political battles, Iran, God's judgment, and then guys on the right-hand side. This is our hurricane outlook for this season. Typically 14 is the average of named storms. We're expecting 23. So hurricanes, then 7 is average, 11 is the forecast. Major hurricanes, instead of 3, it would be 5. That's a lot of growth. And also, once again, Ben Davidson is predicting the first Category 6 hurricane this year. So I can't imagine what that would do to shred things. But if a 6 could occur, it would be horrific. And then in terms of, so this is a list of all of these particular gods. Again, APOPHIS, the snake god that attacks RA, the sun god. CERN is building on top of APOLLO's temple. And then it unveils SHIVA, the god of destruction. NASA is, they're constantly telling us ENLIL as their prediction modeler, and that's the king of the gods. ZEUS, 3-day astrophysical applications. Aleister Crowley's involved in this. This is their big celebration. And then we have our friend Obama's back in the news. And then in America right now, I want to quote from Deuteronomy 28, foreigners who live in your land will gain more and more power while you gradually lose yours. They will have money to lend you, but you will have none to lend them. In the end, they will be your rulers. Some of that seems to be occurring. Now, I can't say that we are, the people that were told in Deuteronomy 28 that this would occur. I would assume that this would be based on the land, but for some reason, it matches up with us. So, once again, that Aquarius song and the planets are lining up and Obama's back. And we've always had this interesting thing where he's been linked with the God of all things. So my comment to you is observe where Obama is on April 8th. The last time we watched him, he was busy in 2019. And as we mentioned during another meeting a few weeks ago, I mentioned that he was at the seat of Satan, which is Revelation 2:13. He was in Berlin, and he was giving a speech and checking out the seat of Satan there on Museum Island. So it's just one more interesting thing. That is the seat of Satan there in Germany on the lower right-hand side. And that's where it looked like in Asia Minor, in Pergamos. And then on the left-hand side, that's what it looked like in Babylon. So it's just interesting, what's going to happen on April 8th. What I'm telling you, it's going to be religious on their side, on the pagan side, we'll call it, and they'll be feasting. We should be fasting, and the key players, just watch them. Just watch what they're doing if they're worshiping. And I mentioned again, this is from when we met a few weeks ago, that there were these eclipses over ancient Babylon, a couple of eclipses that occurred before the first time Babylon fell. This is not during Nimrod, this is after him. But anyway, amazingly, an ancient cuneiform text says that there was a lunar eclipse and a solar eclipse prior to the destruction of the original. This is Hammurabi's Babylon Empire. This is from Blaise and Preston. Technically, Michael on this one, and Michael Snyder. And then here's another one when it fell again, when technically Medo-Persia came in and overwhelmed Babylon without even a fight. There were 2 intersecting solar eclipses over ancient Babylon, 7 years apart, about the time of its fall. So it's just more conjecture, more interesting things, and more, Revelation 2:13, and more of the throne of Satan sitting there in Germany. So really, this is pretty close to the end here. This is about that weird guy, Aleister Crowley, and how he worshipped Satan. And so this is a document from some pagan source, Scarlet Woman Lodge, saying April 10th, 8th to the 10th, 3 days of writing of the book of law, and they will be celebrating. And it's just interesting how it repeats. It doesn't mean that we're going into the Great Tribulation. It just means these are the weirdest signs I've ever seen in my life. And I've been, like even the bridge. So the United States abstains from a vote on Israel. And then the next day, the Francis Scott Key Bridge falls down. And even Haller wondered, what's going on with this, It just seems, there's a guy named Bill Koenig that wrote a book, Eye to Eye, great book, detailing how George Bush sided against, this is HW. No, which one was the first one? Yeah, HW is the first Bush. He sided against Israel, and then this Kennebunkport was destroyed by the perfect storm. And then 2005-ish, we have the Katrina that came in, and Bush W sided against Israel in that case and set up Gaza. Boom, Katrina hit. And it was like Katrina was just sitting out there waiting for him to do something stupid. He did the stupid thing. We got hit. So it's conjecture, but this is the Economist saying Israel is alone right now in the world. The United States just came out today. Our UN ambassador, or rather our Secretary of State, said, well, maybe if Israel won't change its mind, we'll change our mind on Israel. So it's conjecture. It's 8 o'clock at night. Doug, what do you think?
Well, I thought it was interesting that J.D. Thomas just did a fact check. He said it was 6 years, 7 months, and 22 days. So right. There you go. And that's what I feel like a lot of this stuff is that, because I used to do the very same thing. I did this when I was a pre-tribber. I collected all the facts. Wheat rust was going to overtake the wheat. Hey,
I was never here. Good to see you.
Basically, I'll be starving. And nothing happened. So, I mean, I get it. And none of us can know until these dates come and go. Now, could these be harbingers? Maybe. I mean, sure. I'm. Someone said, "Oh, Doug, the eternal skeptic." Well, I guess. Yeah, at this point, I am kind of skeptical on these kinds of things. I mean, Joel, I think your presentation was fantastic. It really, really was interesting. You obviously put a huge amount of work into this, and I mean, wow, there's a lot of amazing stuff.
Did I miss anything?
Well, I don't know.
Has anybody commented and said, "Oh, Joel, you missed it"?
Well, I don't suppose. I mean, it's interesting. I was just reading on Drudge. I mean, it's right today. It says CIA warns Iran attack within 48 hours. Yeah. War cabinet meets, embassies evacuated. I mean, so things are happening, right? I'm not going to deny that. So I'm not so skeptical that I can't just read the news, right? I see that things are happening. The $1 million question is, okay, what does it mean prophetically, right? And that's obviously what we're here to discuss. And I think you've brought forward a lot of very interesting facts that, if there's a correlation between all of these, then, hey, watch out, people. It could be that, maybe we're all seeing things that aren't there, or maybe we're seeing things that are there, and, we'll have to wait and find out. So fantastic.
Scott?
I can't think of anything. I mean, you mentioned the Devil's Comet. You mentioned the planets aligning. You mentioned CERN. I mean, I haven't heard of anything that's actually set to go that day. I mean, I think you mentioned like 7 or 8, 9 different,
Yeah. There's more. The Red Heifer class. So this is Adam Eliyahu.
Oh.
He's a friend of mine. The Red Heifers are ready. So 2 of them qualify. A third one is kind of goldish red, but still red. And so he was over there the other day. He looked at the red heifers. They're beautiful critters. They're shipped over from Texas. They were shipped in 2022. And so his most important point in the last few days was, if anyone says it will happen on Passover, they're lying. It can't, because they just found some kid to be the Cohen Gadol, the chief Cohen. And, you know, he's not ready to go. And I would argue, so we'll use the Hebrew words here, Tamei Tahor. Tahor is ritually pure, Tamei is ritually impure. He might be ritually pure. He's never been around corpse contamination. So he's never been in a hospital. He's never been around a dead person. He's never been in a room with a dead person. He's never touched someone that was around a dead person. And we don't exactly understand why God, I think, you know, Doug could answer this the best, that in the end, God has to destroy death and Hades. And so it seems like corpse contamination is part of that process. So he's saying, Adam Eliyahu Berkowitz is saying, we're not ready to go yet. This kid is green, you know, and we don't know his level of Torah. I didn't see a kippah on his head. So, you know, I'm wondering about that, how orthodox he is. Can you imagine? So we have the reading this week of all readings is where Nadab and Abihu go into the tabernacle and they start making a fire of some sort, and it's called strange fire. And they're killed. They die. And according to the rabbis, they're hauled out basically on their garments. They're literally burned to a crisp. So it's just intriguing when you see this occurring, and you see Adam's put out 3-4 videos in the last couple of days here saying, we're meeting, we just had a rabbinic meeting. It was all in Hebrew, so no Christians were there. And they're trying to set up guidelines on how they could sacrifice the red heifer on the Mount of Olives, and it has to overlook the Temple Mount. And then what do? I mean, they can't just walk through a graveyard into the Temple Mount area. They're going to have a causeway set up. So there's logistics, people. So nothing's going to happen on Passover. Nothing. There's not going to be a rapture this year. I agree with Scott there. But there are going to be.
I agree with that. I don't think there's a rapture coming. I don't believe that at all.
Logistics this year.
Well, you know, it is very interesting, you know, that it's happening over America. Is that significant? Is it just because we live here and we think this is important? Or is it because we are still the one sole superpower that, you know, God's trying to tell us something? Very possible. Very possible. Man, fascinating.
When you add in the red heifer, I mean, Christianity is all a buzz. So my comment again is, we are not re-crucifying Christ. Okay, so the sacrifices were only for ritual impurity, for unintentional sins. There never was a sacrifice.
Yeah, I do not believe this is a rapture at all. A lot of people think they're getting raptured on this eclipse, but I think it's the opposite. I think we're going to get evil poured on us through that devil's comet coming through the solar eclipse. I think there's going to be evil poured out, not rapture.
Other than Yeshua, his blood, for intentional sins, guys, Avona Pesha type sins. So we don't quite understand this. And to be honest with you, the rabbis don't understand clean, unclean that well either. You know, they would argue, well, I just do more mitzvahs and their mitzvot, and then everything's clean, you know? Well, they don't quite get it either. It's been 2,000 years and they've lost a lot of information related to this. In fact, if they want to bury somebody today, they go talk to Christians and say, how did you bury Jesus? Oh, that's how we'll bury. Yeah, literally when they go to the Chevra at a Jewish synagogue, has to research based on Christian tradition with Yeshua to figure out how to bury a Jew today.
Interesting. Okay. That's pretty crazy. Wow. Well, you know, I think there's a lot of amazing things that are happening.
I was never here. Steve Cioccolani posted something really good last night. If I get time to do this and Mike from around the world, I'm going to play that Steve Cioccolani one.
You did a fantastic job of bringing those all out. You know, the rituals that happen at CERN just make no sense whatsoever, and that they have Shiva right there. But
Yeah,
the god of destruction. You work so hard to not say it, than I say.
I tried hard.
But but yeah, when you start looking at all these different gods, they all come down to the same basic gods, which I detail in Corrupting the Image Volume 2 extensively. I think they all lead back to Satan ultimately, in one form or another. Though he certainly could have obviously minions doing part of the work, but I think he likes to take credit for it. And so when you start looking at these gods of death throughout the world, I think they're all basically the same dude, which is Satan. And
yep,
yeah, it is pretty crazy, and there does seem to be a resurgence and a return of the ancient gods. Christianity is becoming less and less popular. I was just reading an article about this, and they're talking about, hey, in fact, even oh my gosh, the atheist skeptic Dawkins was basically noting that, well, maybe Christianity wasn't so bad insofar as it was giving some decent things for living, because what's coming in its void is Islam, which is very hardcore in many areas.
100%.
There's not a lot of freedom in Islam, generally speaking, not like there has been in Christianity. So the atheists have had a field day, throwing stones at Christianity, and sadly they have been somewhat successful. And Christianity is dropping in many countries, especially in the UK, in Scotland. Their churches are just essentially empty at this point. And so when you put this all together, this leaves a void, right? It's not that everyone just becomes a really nice atheist and we're all going to think logically. It doesn't work that way. There's a void of something, and I think it is a return to the old gods, and that's what I'm predicting in Corrupting Image Volume 3, in Regenesis Code, where I think that the old gods are going to be repackaged as aliens. They're going to come to save the day. And so a lot of the things you're talking about here, I mean, these really could be setting the stage for future events. Again, whether it happens this year, is anybody's guess. But that these are all things that are being factored in is truly astounding. And we're wise to keep our eyes open. So thanks for bringing all that, Joel.
It seems like they're pushing the envelope just a little bit more every day, with naming the gods and associating them with whatever activities. And so it seems like whatever you've been researching for the last 15 years will be really, really important as we go forward, because we would believe that these gods seem to have some kind of power and will do certain activities. So it's probably good to learn what they did in Babylon and Egypt and other places to figure out what's going to be coming.
Yeah. Well, so let's think about this for a second. So Jesus, he takes his disciples to Caesarea Philippi, right? You got to think about it. Why would a good Jewish rabbi take his pious disciples to Caesarea Philippi, right? I mean, this is kind of Las Vegas of the ancient world. What stays in Caesarea Philippi, what happens there stays there, right? That's the basic idea. So he goes specifically to a pagan site. I mean, this place is so pagan. It's not even funny. It had been pagan for hundreds of years, potentially thousands of years, depending how you look at it. But it was very pagan in the time of the Greeks. They thought that Bacchus was there, the god of wine. They thought that the satyr god was there as well. And so there was a well that was coming up, the spring, and so water was always flowing out of it. But they tried to put some rocks down there with some tied to some ropes to see how deep this thing was, and they could never find the bottom. And so they started calling it the gates of Hades. But it was also thought that this was very much a cultic place. They had they had Zeus and Aphrodite in the Greek terms, right? But these are the same gods that had been there all the time. Now, towering above this thing was Mount Hermon, right? This is where the gods came down, right? And there were, according to the Book of Enoch, there were 200 that came down, and they made some oath. Now, I'll tell you what's so amazing is when I was writing Corrupting Image Volume 2, I got interested in this supposed quote, or this the stele that had been found, and it said, according to the great and holy God, those taking an oath proceed from here. And I'm like, that doesn't make much sense. Why would they take an oath if they're going to go against what God said to do? Why would they take an oath in his name? It just didn't make any sense to me. So I was like, I want to see the actual stele. So I looked it up in the British Museum, and I'm looking at this thing. I actually find that the original stele, just the stone, I'm looking at the Greek, and I'm like, it doesn't say holy. You know, it's not the word hagios. It's the word batios, right? And I'm like, what in the world is batios, right? I'm like pulling my hair out, trying to figure this thing out. It doesn't make any sense. What in the world is batios? There is no Greek word batios. It does not exist. Now, I had been doing some research at the time on, well, I'm just going to say it, sorry. But,
I tried hard.
I know you did. You worked so hard. And I just threw it off. All right. But I was doing, well, I talked about him already. So
Guy, if you hear Mike come on from Mike from around the world, will you give me a heads up, please?
Doing all this research on Enlil. His secret name, when you start looking at the cuneiform, so this is what's supposed to be his symbol, okay, his logogram. It comes out Bod, okay.
Diane, I agree with that link because he's been completely different the last 2 or 3 weeks, Michael Johnson. I think they've got something on him because he's dropped right back. He even nodded his head when Joe Biden gave his State of the Union address. He was nodding his head in agreement. So, yeah, I think he's been compromised as well.
Or BAD, right? Bad. Which is, I've always wondered, like, is the English word related to that? I don't know. Okay, maybe. But anyway, this word bod could also be bot. All right, so B.
I had very high hopes he would impeach Biden, but he never did.
D and T are, basically the same thing. They're dental letters, right? So anyway, so I was like, I wonder, could it be that you have this name Bod, which means death? Right there is God of death, right? Death and enmity. It's right there.
Yeah, before they hit the ground. That sounds exactly like a radiation blast, doesn't it?
And there, I'm kind of thinking about this. Anyway, long story short, I found out that this was a hybridized name between the ancient Sumerian and Greek. It was amazing. I happened to be the first guy that found this, which was kind of fun. But there it is. The god of death was the one who authorized those 200 angels to go out and do their naughty things back in the days of Noah, right? And it's the god of death. We keep finding the god of death. I think it's the god of death who is going to open up the gates of Hades. I differ from Tom Horn. He thinks it's an actual comet. I don't think that. I don't think that the comet is going to be the issue. I think the star that falls from the heaven is actually Satan, and I think he will fall at the time of when he and his angels are fighting against Michael and his angels. And then guess what? He has the key to the abyss, and he opens it up somehow. Right now, we don't know how he gets the key. Somehow he just acquires it. And of course, we don't know exactly what the
is CERN trying to open that.
Well,
at a circle.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Again, in Regenesis code, I talk about this, right? I have a scientist. I have a scientist who is working at CERN, and he's doing some experimentation, trying to open up some stuff, and he does, right? So I'm tracking with you, right? I'm just, it's just.
Did you know that it was a circle?
Oh yeah, of course
it's a circle.
No, I mean
that was a line.
Oh no! It has to be a circle because they have to go. This particle accelerator, it has to go around, really fast a whole bunch of times until they can accelerate it close to the speed of light, and then they, smash it together.
It's going to be 7 miles under the speed of light. Think about that.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. That really is impressive. And I think on the one hand they're just trying to do science, but could there be some nefarious agenda deep down? Yeah, I think there very well could be. And again, I think all good science can be used for evil, right? So that's where I would take it. I really don't like to throw researchers and scientists under the bus because they're all devilish, trying to open up
Dr. Evil.
I just don't think so. Yeah, I think that most of them have very good intentions and they're really trying to make the world a better place. But one guy can come along and he can turn all of that good stuff into bad stuff. And but again, why do they have Shiva outside their door? Like, you guys, like, this is just strange. Like, the optics here are not very good for what you're trying to do. So, it's just crazy. And, when you think about these old gods, it was at Babel, right? This is where the gate of the gods got started. And, our God seems to be pretty ticked off still at Babel. Because even in the book of Revelation, he's talking about Babel. Now, in the days of John, Babel as any kind of a important city did not really exist. I mean, it was there and people were still living there. But, it was not the center of the world by any stretch of the imagination. So God still has this vendetta. You see it throughout Scripture. He's got this vendetta against Babel because that is where all these multiform gods came into being, essentially, and that's where they really began to divert man's attention from the one true God to all these.
Was Babel a gate of the gods?
I think so. Yeah, I definitely argue that in Corinthians 1:2 that it was a gate of the gods, and I think again I don't know exactly how, but I speculate a little bit in my book that they were trying to create a wormhole, right? And so that's what I think they were trying to do. They could use and now they're discovering that wormholes and quantum entanglement are maybe actually the same thing, right? It's kind of strange. You're like, oh my goodness. In fact, it's called D-Link computers. So of quantum computers. So they're trying to use quantum computers, right? And they're talking about how they're going to open up some kind of a portal and they're going to reach into this other dimension and pull out from there these other resources from this other world.
Well, you saw the quote that I gave you where he said maybe something will come in or maybe something will go out from this. Yeah.
I mean, again, we write about this, Mornay and I, in my co-author for Genesis. We talk about this extensively. That this is kind of the stuff that's happening. So I'm with you. It's just
this is what you research.
Well, yeah, exactly.
On this issue, I don't. If CERN is involved in this ripping the veil, in other words, Yah can allow the principalities, powers of darkness.
Shawnee, I don't reckon we get raptured until Armageddon. I don't reckon we get raptured until then, because on the brink of defeat, Christ comes back on his horse and rescues us. I think that's the rapture. When I read Revelation on my own without any input, that's the conclusion I come to, that Armageddon is the rapture.
Just to manipulate, to influence scientists, to influence leaders, et cetera, et cetera. I think if it ever does happen where they open up this portal, this gateway, the heavens, into this other dimension, I believe it's going to happen in the fall. Or, as far
Why
as
the fall?
No, I'm sorry. I think it's going to have to start off in the spring. So in other words, I do believe everything winds up in the fall, and we've got those 42 months, there's 1,260 days, the 1,290 days from Daniel, and you just look at your biblical calendar. I don't like to call it the Jewish calendar, but if you look at your biblical calendar, if it kicks off in the spring, 3.5 years later is Yom Teruah, Feast of Tabernacles, and Feast of Trumpets. So I don't think we're going to see anything this year that could even possibly qualify as the abomination of desolation. I know some people are saying that the red heifer could be the abomination of desolation. And again, I can make an argument for it because it says, all it says is when you see the abomination of desolation standing in the holy topos place. Doesn't say altar, doesn't say temple, doesn't say anything. It just says a holy location. I personally believe the Mount of Olives is a holy location. I just don't think it's going to qualify as the abomination of desolation. And if they do the red heifer, and some people are probably going to be out there in prophecy world saying that's what it is and start the countdown, get ready for 2027. I don't think, if we're still buying and selling, we're not in the final 42 months, or at least there's a rollout plan. In other words, there's an announcement. They've gone to central digital currency. They give you a 1-year grace period or something, maybe why they're getting this international monetary system, beast system under control. I mean, I think they'll have it ready in place right away when it's time to go. And I believe that all kicks off in the spring. That we'll see an abomination of desolation. Things will start to get supernatural, biblical up in here or down in here, because that portal has been opened. Satan and his minions are kicked out of heaven. They're running around the atmosphere of the earth, or the earth, for this final 3.5 years, and it's going to get, like Doug says, you got two options. You're either going to believe in God, the God of the Bible, or a God, or you're going to believe in aliens. You're not going to be able to sit here with your rational human mind and go, this is just normal stuff. This is so they've got the evolutionary theory. These are more highly evolved species that they created us and they're our gods, or you've got the truth, which is the biblical account. Yeah. I do think that's the only two explanations when this stuff starts happening.
I agree.
Yeah.
You're going to be forced into either camp.
Yeah. And it's going to seem so natural, I mean, people look for natural explanations, Occam's razor and all that stuff, right? They just want, like, okay, what makes the most sense, right? And if you have otherworldly beings that are showing up, right, and then it turns out these otherworldly beings have been around for a long time, we just have called them different things, I mean, you think about it. The leader of the Galactic Federation for people that are
thanks, Dolly.
Channeling these different spirits and whatnot. His name is Ashtar, right? And you're like, Ashtar? Like, seriously?
like Star Day?
Yeah, exactly. So Ashtar
that
is
means
the leader of the Galactic Federation.
Yeah.
Right. And so this is people that claim to be speaking with aliens. It just so happens that the name of the aliens is exactly the same as the ancient gods. And
you saw that little green man on the screen, what the guy was talking to, he looks like a little green man, he
really does. He really does. Right. So again, there's a lot of weird stuff out there we can't quite make sense of, but you start putting enough of the pieces together, you're like, okay. Again, I'm a little skeptical on dates especially. But again, that we are marching toward the end. Oh, I totally believe that. I totally believe that. And I think there's a lot of weird stuff that's going on. What exactly Crowley did, I don't know, but he claims to have opened some portal, him and Parsons, that they opened up the portal and they invoked Babylon. I don't know.
Parsons,
and of course, so Babylon obviously is, what is Babylon, right? Who was the leader of Babylon? Who started Babylon? It was Nimrod, okay? And Nimrod in the ancient world was known as Ninurta. He was a son of Enlil, and when you understand that Enlil is Satan, Ninurta is Nimrod. He's the rebel, and he established Babel, the gate of the gods. This was the pleasure palace of the gods. It was the connection point between heaven and earth, so they weren't like trying to build a tall building so they could touch the dome over the supposed flat earth.
There's a lot of traffic out there that they're going to sacrifice the red heifers at the eclipse. If they're going to do that at the eclipse, that is really crazy stuff, guys. That is really crazy stuff.
They were trying to create some kind of a dimensional doorway so that they could get to the other side.
Well, Israel's nuclear arm, they've got nuclear missiles, Israel.
Let the gods come into this side. And it's interesting that Jacob has a dream where he sees a ladder between heaven and earth. And then Jesus tells us that it was the Son of Man. Jesus is the ladder, right? And so Enlil, Satan, claimed to be the connection point between heaven and earth. And Jesus says, no. I'm the connecting point between heaven and earth, right? So we got this massive battle going on between these two, obviously, very powerful. Jesus, of course, all powerful beings, but Satan has some authority, and that's how he can operate in this world. And so this is what happens between these two. So there's a lot of stuff. There's clearly some spiritual stuff. I do think that God is going to fully allow Satan, however it may be, but to open up the portal. I think there's some magic involved with the science, with the technology. You know, and that probably what you showed there at CERN with all that really weird stuff. I mean, that's just straight up occultic, demonic, you know, and that's where I think, you know, you start having casting spells and whatnot that somehow is going to aid in the opening of this door. So yeah, some people are doing real science and they're, you know, just crunching numbers and they're trying to make sense of stuff. But there's another side that is actually, you know, working on this other part of the equation, as it were, which is a spiritual equation. And I think that they're trying to find keys. You know, when you think about the key to the abyss, okay,
yeah.
what is a key? You know, I mean, is he going to come with some big metal key and he's like, okay, open this thing up? You know, I don't think so. Don't we all use virtual keys every single day when, you know, we put our thumb on our computer and it opens up, right? Or we put in our password.
When we buy Bitcoin, we need our keys.
It's a key. A key is something, some kind of a password that it locks something. And it doesn't have to be a physical door. It can be very much a spiritual door, right? And so it's
Shawnee, apparently this missile goes at 18,000 miles an hour. And if that's true, they can't shoot that missile down. They haven't got the technology to bring down a missile doing 18,000 miles an hour. So that they got a lot of weapons like that. When Russia goes to war, they're going to win. We're not going to win. They will.
If you kind of need a whole mechanism to make it happen, right? Well, what's involved with opening a door? Well, there's a lock, right? So there's something on the door. Then you can bring something external to that. And what is on that key? Well, there's a code on a physical metal key. There's a code on that physical metal key. We've just simply taken away the metal and we're left with the code. And so this is where I think, you know, you could use the science to help engineer the lock, to help build the key. But what is the code? Who's got the code? And that's where I think they're going to turn to the occult to say, okay, give us the secret password so that we can open this thing up. And I suspect, again, this is what I talk about in Regenesis. Regenesis code. We have a character who is sort of the embodiment of the woman that rides the beast, and so she's the one who has all this secret ancient knowledge, this occult knowledge, to give these secret passwords, as it were, to open up the various portals. You know, so again, I'm with you. You know, it's just, you know, we'll see. I don't think it's this year, but it's coming. So
they're not doing it until Yah says it's time, and that'll be, I believe that'll be 3.5 years prior to the end of this age and his return. And if he allows them to use their science and you know, experiments or whatever to open this up, that's just how he does it.
Sure.
I mean, it's how he chooses to. Yeah. He chooses to let them figure it out, and that's just part of his plan. He's playing 11th dimensional chess, and they're just playing checkers.
Yeah, and what I think, you know, I think an important point to understand is that what we have in the Book of Revelation are the bullet points. Okay, if you've ever done a presentation, you have a bullet point. Usually, there's like a ream of data behind that bullet point, right? But if it's all been summarized in that one point. And that's essentially what the Book of Revelation is doing, is it's telling us these are the highlights, right? These are the things that happen. You know, he had the key to the abyss. Wow. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in there. How in the world, you know, could this happen? Well, the Bible doesn't tell us how it's going to happen, simply that it does happen, right? And so then, you know, this is what kind of freed me when I started writing a fictional book about the end times. I was like, oh my goodness, I really have to think now. It's not just that it happens, but how could it happen? Because I'm trying to put it on the screen or put it in a book, and I'm trying to, you know, kind of envision, right? And so, you know, I go looking for, like, okay, what could be a particular mechanism? You know, so I'm kind of stuck somewhere between CERN and quantum computers, and it could be a fusion of the two. You know, that you know, or something, I don't know, that they somehow come up with a way to smash particles together and say secret words, and you know, bada boom, there it goes. There's some kind of a little door opening. You know, we're seeing this in the movies too, right? I mean, with Doctor Strange and the sling ring, right? And then they can just open up a door to a different dimension, right? I think that's essentially what we're talking about, is that there's going to be a door open to another dimension. It won't quite be like Doctor Strange, but, you know, but that will allow things that are on the other side to come to this side. Now, I was going to say, I kind of got a little bit sidetracked, but when Jesus went up on top of Mount Hermon, right, I think that he was putting Satan on notice that, hey, this is now my mountain. You know, you guys claimed it way back when, and Mount Hermon had been.
And not just that, since Jesus done that, Apollo and Shiva and all that, they haven't got the power they used to have. So Christ took away a lot of their power to appear before people and that.
And known as the mountain of the oath almost since time began, right?
Yeah, they already
far
are.
back as records go, that's what it was called. And
they're already turning on Israel, Sean. Even our country is. Our politicians are turning on Israel, but our newspapers are sticking up for Israel. So there's a bit of a double-edged sword there.
Jesus was reclaiming it per Psalm 68. And you know, so what I think when he said that the gates of Hades will not prevail, see, the first century Jewish apocalyptics, they believed that at any moment, the gates of Hades were going to just fling wide open, and that the hordes of Hades, the hordes of hell, were going to just come rushing out of this place with shooting their arrows, right? And so that's what they were imagining. And frankly, I think that was the plan. I think that's what Satan had in mind. And Jesus came along and he said, that's not going to happen. Not on my watch. Not today, right? What Satan has planned to do is not going to happen right now. And so it's been delayed. You know, at this point, some 2,000 years it's been delayed. We'll have to wait and see exactly how long it takes, right? But, you know, I think that was Satan's big plan, was to basically get out of jail and, you know, get his buddies out of jail, as it were, and to reclaim the earth. You know, I think that's what he was trying to do. You know, so there's all these little clues that are in Scripture when you start digging deeper, right? I mean, you start looking, where is this place? At Mount Hermon. It's in the land of Bashan, right? Bashan is the ancient god of Bashmu in the Akkadian. It's just another name for Enlil, Satan. I mean, it's all in there, right? It's crazy. And you start looking at the great red dragon. That's a symbol for Enlil. Also, Nimrod, you know, the woman that rides the beast. I mean, that is Ishtar. She actually rode the Anzu bird, which was Enlil. And, you know, who's controlling who? Well, I think it's the one down below, the one that she's riding, actually holds the control.
So are we going to watch God battle with these small g gods in the end times? Is it going to be a physical, spiritual? Will we see this occur in our lifetimes?
Well, I don't know if we'll see it in our lifetimes. I mean, who knows that? But I think when it all does finally come down, you know, it says that Satan and his angels are cast out of heaven. Right, so I think they exist behind the veil, and they will no longer have that sort of immunity or anonymity to hide behind the veil. They're going to be forced into this dimension, and I think by opening the abyss, they will. I think that happens at the same time. The opening of the abyss, the Satan getting kicked out of heaven, the star falling from heaven to earth. Right now, again, in the book of Revelation, it's all mishmashed in its order, and that's where we get kind of confused. But just don't look at it. You know, it doesn't happen chronologically; it's happening thematically. And again, that liberated me to understand that it's a thematic arrangement versus a chronological arrangement, and then it works perfectly fine. And you know, and so it's just amazing how all these things come together. And so whenever the abyss opens, is when Satan gets kicked out of heaven. And of course, I think
I'll switch over to Begley now, Di. Hang on, I'll just look him up. Paul Begley. He's there now live. Found him. Thanks, Doug Hamp. That was interesting, mate. Thank you. And now we got Mike from around the world.
But about apocalyptic signs and about all the different things going on. It is a phenomenal interview, well done by CBN. I will say it was the best interview I've ever been a part of. The host was amazing, and the CBN editors that put in all of the events, everything that we talked about in this interview, they kept putting up on the screen and showing you that it is actually happening in the world. It's right out of the pages of our book, Revelation 9/11. So promise me tonight you will watch it. Is somebody there got the link? Could you? There it is. Somebody just threw the link up. Throw it up there a few times for people tonight so that they can click on the link. It will take you straight there to the CBN YouTube channel, which has over 1.7 million subscribers. And this interview will be seen on television by millions of people. And then Sunday night, I'll be on radio, Troy Anderson and I, on the Coast to Coast show, being interviewed for 2 hours by George Norrie, again, talking about the current events and the solar eclipse and what the Bible says about
40
it.
seconds.
And about Revelation 9:11. That's usually has a crowd of 2 million listeners every night there. Certainly the night before the eclipse, I would say pretty good listening audience. Pray about that, would you? Pray about that. I just want people to know that the Lord is on our side. Mike around the world's going to call any second. I just picked up the phone. I'm turning up the volume. I'm preparing myself for it. Thank you for scripture reference. Thank you for posting that CBN YouTube thing. And thank you guys for your offerings tonight. Just before Mike comes, if you would send in your tithe and offering tonight, do that in the name of Jesus. Please do that in the name of Jesus. We're going to continue to preach the gospel and get as many people to Christ as possible. We are not going to back down. We're not going to give in. We are not going to quit because we're working together. And collectively, all of us, collectively, we can get the job done in the name of Jesus. We're going to get the job done. It's getting done. But my question is it too late? Is it too late for America? Is it too late? Is it too late for the world? Is it just too late? Mike from around the world. Are you there, Mike?
God bless you, Pastor Paul. Here.
You are here. You're coming in loud and clear. I'm on the road, Mike. I'm in Dallas for this conference. I brought all my equipment so that so people could hear you loud and clear. I don't want any more emails. I don't want, okay, please. So you're here. It's great to hear your voice, Mike. How you doing tonight?
Well, good to be here, Pastor Paul. Very, very shaky night.
It is a shaky night. And I even titled this broadcast, Is It Too Late? And I mean this in a lot of ways. So we can go in a lot of different directions. But, we can start with Israel. We can talk about Iran. We can start there. But let's start in America first. The eclipse is coming. There's already, Indiana's already declared a state of emergency because there's so many people. There's FEMA is getting in position. The National Guard is being deployed in different places. The threat levels I hear are high. Mike, can you tell us, it's a shaky night. Can you tell us what you mean?
Well, yeah, that threat level is extremely high. And but I'm glad that somebody is finally, letting people know that we are in serious times here. In essence, the very thing that happened in Israel, they desire to happen to us with the same carnage. They want to happen here with maximum damage. And so, yeah, things are quite shaky. Well, as the word says, the enemy is of your own household. Right. So we have a lot of embedded operatives, you could say, from foreign countries that are here, that are set up. Of course, they don't do this overnight, Pascal. This takes years to grow. Right. And from what's coming back, they've been working for years to get everything set up. And so here we are. So
I was interviewing last night Amit Greenfield. He's a lieutenant in the IDF. He's in America right now, and I actually interviewed him last night. And he said, "Don't you understand, Paul? We're little Satan. You guys are big Satan.
Yep.
What you saw, we failed. We dropped the ball. We took it for granted that they wouldn't just come roaring in like that, and that the hundreds of people would come and do what they did to us. We dropped the ball.
Yep.
I'm afraid." He goes, and I don't know, but look at your southern border. I mean, do you really think you're really ready? Mike, are we ready?
Yeah, we're too arrogant. I think we're too arrogant regarding leadership. I'll tell you something, basketball. So long as people continue to call out on men to save them, they're messing up. That's the first mistake. Right. And the Lord has His answer for that in Judges 10:14.
Okay.
So hopefully, for the Christians, if they would turn back to the living God, right? Stop calling out for people, but call out for the living God. I mean, really turn back to Him. Well, then maybe. But if the believers don't do it, nobody else has a hope. And as far as people in the USA,
hey, Vash, you showed up just in time for Mike from around the world.
Already placed here. They've been here for some time now.
It's too late to stop them from getting in position and getting the Trojan horse is here. They've been all, they're out of the bag. They're in position. That's too late, isn't it? That's too late.
It is too late. It's too late for everyone. I agree here.
Yeah, because they have jobs in nuclear facilities. They're in the military. They own businesses. They're CEOs and presidents, and you name it. They've been embedded for quite some time. And through a lackadaisical attitude here in the USA, well, so long as we're fighting each other, these guys just laugh and they continue to set up,
Are you concerned that during the eclipse, are you concerned that there's plots or plans already in motion?
I know they are. They are. That's why everybody is being called upon basketball. You're looking at people who travel here, right? Yeah. Think about this. A lot of people are going to come to the USA. A lot of people from different places are going to nonchalantly group in these groups. Now, here's the problem. You don't know who these people are, right?
No.
And when you have people in close proximity like that, watching some sort of an event, one operation I know about is for a person to infect themselves. They get around a bunch of people, right? Well, think about a jihadist. They will easily go into a place and blow themselves up, right?
Right.
So think of this. Think of a person who injects themselves with some sort of a toxin that has no cure, no anything. And they go amongst a bunch of people, right?
Yeah.
Well, if they do that, they're going to infect those people that same night. 3 days later, you're going to have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people contaminated and drop dead. That's what will happen. There are toxins that 3 days after injection, the person will 100% die. There is no saving anybody from it if they touch anybody else. If they're in close proximity to anybody else, that's it. And so with these events, they're not, the average civilian out there, they're not taking any of this into consideration because they've heard war stories too much. They've heard scenarios too much. Now they're at a point where they don't believe anything. Right. They'll listen, but they don't believe it. And so when these other folks want maximum damage to the USA, because they continue to say before they can absolutely get Israel, the USA must be on fire, right? We must burn. And so they don't mind sending, 100,000 people over here injected with something to intermingle with the rest of the people.
And this would be
it's so easy to do. Yes, it's so easy to do. A person goes overseas, they go back home to visit their families. They're from the USA, but they go home to visit their families in various parts of the Middle East. They come back, right? They have 3 days to go in Philly with any and everybody they can. And this eclipse could be one of those masterful times. Now, what I'm telling you is not some wild idea. This is an actual plan. It's a plan. It's an actual plan. And the issue is you just don't know when they're going to execute it.
I knew they had a plan for this eclipse. I knew it.
You do know for a fact it will be executed. It most certainly 1,000% is going to be executed that way. They just don't know when that's going to happen. So, and you can't detect that. You can't, because for 3 days, a person's not going to have a fever. They're not going to have that biofeedback from the body that would allow somebody to say that person's sick. And so here we are in those days. And they really want America to burn.
So this war with Israel, of course, is really a war with the United States as well. We're big Satan. They're little Satan. the New World Order. I mean, we talk a lot about this beast in the Bible, in Revelation 13. It rises up. It's vicious. Daniel said said this beast kingdom had iron teeth. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's no mercy here. I mean, we're talking about a mentality, a ideology, a demonic ideology that has no mercy. And Christians and Jews primarily are the prey, if you will. That's really what they want to do, isn't it? Break our spirit, break our faith, break our nation's freedom, and consolidate this thing somehow into a one world monster government. Are they really thinking?
Well, you know what they are. That's what they're actually doing. And if you look right now, right, everything that's happening is happening according to their playbook. And I hate to say this, but people have played right into their hands for about the last 20 years. And the end result of what they wanted is happening right now. And the only thing to obstruct them is to get, if God's people would stop looking to the world for a solution.
Right.
Right, and look back to God, then God would lead them a different way. But because they keep looking to the world, they're going to have the world's results. And I hate to tell them, but the world has a demonic influence over it. Right, so every time a person does something by the world's ideology, they're going to have worldly results. They're not going to have godly results. They're going to have worldly results. And so the only difference that can be made right now is with those who believe in Christ. That's the only difference.
Amen.
If those who believe in Christ, if they don't take a stand, there is no stand. There is no hope. It is, things will be executed like they're going to be executed. If God's people were to turn around, I believe that the Lord He would stay everything. He would.
Because He can. Yes, He can.
That's
so,
right.
so the statement I like to make sometimes is, God can change His mind when we change our hearts.
Yep, He will.
But He can't do it if we don't, right?
That's right, because that day of the Lord that's not a good day for anybody. In the Bible, it says it's a fool that asks for the day of the Lord, right? There's no good in the day of the Lord. So a lot of people don't know what they're asking for, and there's a buildup. There are lots of events going to this buildup, and unfortunately, we just crossed over into one. Bad news. It's not good news. It's bad news concerning our sun. Solar activity, but it was just one of those things.
So let's talk a little bit about that, because again,
the 40 days, it has to do with the 40 days.
All right, you said you was going to share it. Yes, you was going to share what that meant. So tell us what that meant.
But everybody knows we're in a very, very prominent solar cycle, right? And so what was about starting in solar cycle 19, right? We've had the highest abnormal solar cycles ever, right, since they began recording it. Now, everybody remembers the Carrington event. To understand what I'm about to say, you have to understand the Carrington event. The scientist Carrington, who was doing the solar observation, saw a flash about 11 a.m. I believe it was 17 hours later. The Earth was hit with a geomagnetic storm that overwhelmed the Earth's magnetosphere. Now, during that time, auroras were seen all the way down to Cuba and Hawaii. Wow. Machines they started running by themselves. You normally hear about wires burning up and everything. You seldom hear about machines starting up by themselves. So anything with a motor and armatures and the way they had them wired, they started running all by themselves. So lots of things burned up. Telegraphs, some transmitted power, some blew up, some started running all by themselves. In the Rocky Mountains, a lot of miners at midnight. This is at midnight. They thought it was daytime. They woke up for breakfast, right? They thought it was daytime. They thought it was in fact, most of them wrote, they thought it was a cloudy morning. And so they began to cook breakfast, have coffee and eggs and things like that. So this was a huge event. Had that event happened now, we would have been back in the Stone Ages. Here's a problem, though. The Carrington event was at a very low scale concerning all the solar cycles we've had. I'll say it again. It was at a low scale, right? So you're talking about a very low scale. I believe it was one of the first X class we had of this solar cycle was 2019 in July. I believe it was somewhere around there.
Okay.
It was a X 1.6, right? So pretty low. But Pastor, we've reached a point where everything is premature. This solar cycle has messed up all records. All records. It was estimated that the peak would hit around 2025 with about 115 sunspots, I believe they were looking for. Well, they had to change everything. They put the premature peak, which there are two peaks in a solar cycle. They put the premature peak between January and October. What I was doing was, in this 40-day period, there's been a type of magnetic charge from the sun and the earth and the interaction that you can record. It's not the butterfly.
Hey guys, my Wi-Fi has been really playing up the last week, and I think it's these solar flares that Mike's on about, because it's really played up my YouTube, my Wi-Fi.
That's right. But it's a set of different charts and you record that data. If there's no interaction, we could survive whatever the sun is going to throw out, right? Here's the problem: we didn't. We had interactions. We didn't make it. So because we did not make it, and it overwhelmed our magnetosphere, which on the 40th day, we had a magnetic storm on the 40th day.
Okay.
So we didn't make it. Here's what that means. The sun is about to go into a premature peak.
Okay.
It's also about to have its polar reversal. Okay, so it's going to reverse. It's about to go into that reversal period. Okay.
So
we are at the wrong polarity.
You're not.
We're at the wrong polarity.
You're not saying it's a pole shift. It's a pole reversal.
Yeah, that's what the sun is about to do. That'll be. It's going to go into that. It normally does this, but the problem is, we're not. The Earth's magnetic field is too chaotic, right? It is not organized, and so we're going to have for some reason. Well, not for some reason. It's outside of us. The chaotic field of the Earth seems to be interacting with the sun's chaotic activity, right? And here's what that means. That means we're going to have some radiation storms we have not had in about since 1933. We haven't had radiation storms like that since 1933. That not only that, but the sun's activity, some of the electric field that covers the Earth, right? It's an electric field. It's going to dip way down, which means NASA is deeply concerned about every satellite up there, right? Space Command is concerned about all their GPS satellites, and so we have some bad problems coming, right? It's going to cause some sort of damage, and we can't get away from this. It's not correcting itself. It's going into the flip with vulnerabilities. And so what that means is we're taking the next Carrington, that Carrington event, 1859, is nothing compared to what's about to happen. That is probably 1/4 of what we're about to get. How about that?
Wow.
So we're going to be hit with something much, much higher than the Carrington event could ever generate.
And we're way more dependent on more technological satellites and
that's right.
And computer systems and microchips. So the devastation from that is unfathomable. Am I right?
Yeah, it'll be about 3 times stronger. You're looking at forces. The Earth is subject to the forces of the sun, especially. But here's what makes it worse: we have a chaotic magnetic field, right?
Okay.
Where our magnetic field is about to go through a very chaotic moment. And what that means is we'll have magnetic field lines that leave large gaps to the surface of the Earth, so things will get through, right? All that radiation is not going to be redirected to the poles. So think about this: during the Carrington event at midnight, it turned daytime, right? I'm sure I heard a scripture like that.
Wow.
We're going to see that again. So at midnight, probably about midnight, somewhere around there, depending on when it hits, it's going to seem like it's daytime. It'll last for quite some time too. So here we are.
Well, is it because the charged particles in the air light up, or is it the electricity? Is it
the result
radiation?
of the auroras, the light from the auroras, those are high-speed particles colliding. Think of it this way: CERN, right? What CERN does through the Hadron Collider happens naturally in the upper atmosphere, causing an aurora. And of course, oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen, all these different gases, they light up different colors at different altitudes when they're struck by high-speed particles, right? Plus, we have a huge tsunami of a force inbound to our solar system, which will probably coincide around the same time.
Whoa. A huge tsunami of a force. Now, you're not talking asteroids and meteorites here now. You're talking about...
No. Energy. It's energy.
Energy.
That's energy, yeah.
Wow. A huge... When are you anticipating that?
Well, all the agencies have their neutrino detectors. They're actually doing the double checking everything, right? Because once it starts coming in, their neutrino detectors will start detecting this, right? These galactic cosmic rays coming in. It just happens to be a lot of concentration of them are coming in at the same time. The sun will start its flip moment at the same time. The Artemis missions are going to be happening also. It's just one of those, triple whammy type deals.
Is it
the fallout could be past the fall that we could have some severe issues happening from that. For example, the GPS satellites, right? The USA.
Hey Barry, good to see you,
those
mate.
belong to the USA. Those specifically belong to the Air Force. All GPS satellites.
Barry, I never saw your comment about 10 minutes ago. Sorry, bro.
That's belong to the U.S. Air Force.
Okay.
All of them do. So that means our enemies use our GPS satellites for their missile targeting, right? Which is why Israel has quick access to that.
Is that why that's why they're scrambling them right now to keep Iran?
Yeah, that's a simple request. Simple request, and then Air Force Command complies. So we can do that. They belong to us. Isn't that funny though? Even Russia uses our GPS satellites to guide their missiles. Isn't that funny?
And we allow it.
Well, that's the game of warfare, right? Yeah. Anyway, but they can turn them off when they get ready. But if this storm, once these solar happenings begin to take place, there'll be no GPS satellite, right? The Air Force Command has, they have great concern about this. And again, in the Bible, Pastor Paul did say that the horses would be smitten with blindness.
Yes, it does say.
The riders with madness. Well, we don't ride horses, but we do have GPS-guided vehicles. And if there's no...
Wow, doesn't that make sense?
Well, GPS, that vehicle is essentially blind. Yep.
Yeah, the planes...
So we are...
Nah, prophecy with Stan will be okay. He's got an EMP safe car, so he can drive around dropping food off, Paul.
So will our planes. Our planes
have already been warned. They've been, the FAA has been, they're coming up with manuals and times, and they're trying to get the precise dates because they have several warnings for all commercial, airlines. During certain times, they're not going to be able to travel at all. So there will come some days when there will be zero air traffic, no air traffic. They're not going to allow planes to go up in the air. They will not. During the eclipse, for example, when this time something odd is going to happen, we don't know what the results will be, but when the moon is in front of the sun, it's going to obstruct a very smooth stream of particulates. They don't know what's going to happen when that obstructs it. It could cause a blanking effect or a negation effect in gravity. Right, a small change in physics. Yeah, it could very well cause that. If that happens, well, that's going to cause some bad problems too. Also, electronically, right? When you obstruct, let's say the main voltage coming out of something, once you put something in front of that to resist it or cause some sort of inductance, of reactance or capacitance reactance, you're going to slow the forces after that. Meaning, to slow those forces and to have a low potential of the voltage will increase the amperage, right? That means heat. That means speed of flow of the electrons. All that will start to speed up. So that could cause some issues also, right? St. Elmo's fire, for example, that whole phenomena could be increased tenfold. They don't know. They don't know. No plane can withstand St. Elmo's fire increased tenfold. They can't fly like that. That would just be devastating, right? So they don't know about that effect. This is the first time they've ever recorded a steady stream, right, of particulates.
Cut down the number of planes in the sky during this eclipse? Is there any?
There's a warning. They will issue warnings for air traffic. They're going to issue warnings for any ships on the sea. They're going to have warnings all over the place. Now, what excuse or cover story they're going to use, who knows? Maybe they'll say, you know, pilots don't look directly into the sun or you go blind and crash the plane. Who knows?
Yeah,
but
okay, I got it.
They're going to have to do something because these forces, when you start playing with these forces, right, it's kind of like if you hold battery cables and you haven't connected them to the battery yet, no big deal.
They're live.
As soon as you connect them, even the right way, you're going to get that initial spark of the flow of electrons, right? And if you tap them together, you're really going to be in trouble, right? If they're connected to the battery. So forces can seem benign when they're in their normal, you know, mode of operation. As soon as you obstruct them, then kapoof, you cut that circuit. They don't know what will happen. And in this case, the moon is going to cut the circuit, the natural stream flow, right, of radiation or particulates or power coming from the sun to the earth and back to the sun. It will obstruct it this time. So
let me ask
no one knows what will take place.
Okay, now CERN. Well, first of all, I was looking to see if there was a CERN here in Texas. There was supposed to have been one built, was supposed to be like 10 times or 20 times greater than the one in Switzerland. But that got canceled. They never built it. I often wondered about what would happen. But CERN is going to fire up during the eclipse on April 8th. And I mean, they're going to fire this thing up full blast. I mean, is that okay? I mean, is there a reason to do it that day? Is the gravitational difference?
Sure it is. It's just like nuclear weapons, right? Everybody thinks you can detonate a nuclear weapon at any given time, right?
Yeah.
That's not true. It's not true. That is not true. Powerful forces here on Earth must sync up with celestial powers, or you're going to have a difference in physics and things won't operate correctly. Right? Okay. So they use celestial happenings to maximize different things they do here on this Earth. Now, NASA's no secret. NASA's connected with Apollyon. Period.
Oh, wait a minute. Whoa. NASA is CERN is CERN. You're talking NASA now.
NASA's connected with Apollyon.
With Apollyon, right. You know, Apollyon is the thing that comes out of NASA's.
And CERN and NASA, right? Well, our government, they work closely together.
With Apollyon.
There should be no secret that NASA and Apollyon
are you saying NASA and CERN are communicating with this demon?
They always do. Well, they communicate together to do different things. It was NASA who had the psychic experiments during most of their, missions. It is the ISS who who has the experiments with CERN every time they operate, right?
Okay.
They do meditation experiments. They do spiritual experiments.
Okay.
They have ceremonies. They have dedications, right? They bear the patch. And they bear the true name of Apollyon on all vehicles, this, that, and the other. So yeah, these guys are steeped in that type of thing, right? They show it to the whole world, and the world doesn't care.
It's occultism, though. You're going into the dark side here. I mean,
they've been doing that for a long time. That's how that was what when the Germans came over, right? When they picked everybody out to help out the space program here in the USA. It was a known fact that you had to appease ancient gods to have success in the heavens, and that's how they did it. They were in communication with spirits that gave them the information. So meditation, all that is a high part of that. Look at Apple, right? All successful companies do the same thing. They do the exact same thing. They connect with the exact same entities. They do it all the time.
So it's nothing new that we have occult connections between groups of organizations with the beyond the veil, communicating, paying homage, worshiping the gods of the dark side. Lucifer, the prince of the power of the air, is in communication with mankind through these different technologies.
Always.
Yeah.
Where do you think they get their ideas from?
Well, I was going to
Nikola
ask you.
Tesla. I know people parade Nikolai is one of the greatest minds, but he told everybody in his own writings who he was in communication with, right? Albert Einstein is the one that gave the warning. He gave the warning. He stopped hanging around or doing things for certain folks because of their ties to, the esoteric things. It was Area 51. It was S4, S325 that had all those ceremonies out there, and people start seeing the orbs. Not necessarily ships or anything, but orbs, right? Though that's spiritual interactions. It is, and it's almost like the USA leads the way in devil worship right now. It was also no secret that the USA was the home. It's a kingdom here in the USA. Underneath the USA, it's the home of something, which is what some of these older stories about folks who were, when they were digging tunnels in the USA, right? Various transportation tunnels, they ran into big problems. It got so bad they had to bring Delta operators and special forces with them every time they went to go dig a tunnel, to go dig in a mountain because they would find things. So the Germans educated the U.S. on such things. Remember, they were the masters at underground bases, and they taught us, but they also taught us what to expect, what we're going to run into, how to arm against them, and how to appease them. Right.
Now, is the radical Islamist, the groups, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, the Iranians, who are in connection with working with the North Koreans, the Chinese, the Russians?
They're all part of one alliance.
It's a vortex of evil, isn't it?
Yes, I call it the unholy alliance.
Unholy alliance.
Yeah.
They
are.
Do you feel that do they have a timeline of certain events that they must accomplish? This 2030, we've been stuck on this thing, and the UN and the World Economic Forum and the Council of Foreign Relations and the Trilateral Commission and some of these secret societies, and we studied all that when we wrote our book here. But what I'm asking you is there a timeline of events that coincide with the celestial world?
Yes. Yeah, but I give you a caution though.
Okay.
Anything you can read about these groups, they already know you can read about.
Yeah,
there's a reason.
Okay.
Civilians or the public, there's a reason the public is always thrown off, because every time they have an announcement, they've already accomplished things, right? And then you wonder, what is their real timing? So you have to take whatever days they give you, right? And you have to start subtracting years from that. And they always do that. So they throw everybody off. Now, if nobody says, especially with dates, if nobody says anything about a date, they all automatically know that in the civilian world, people are going to start having ideas about it. Those ideas will take form, shape. All of a sudden, they become fact with nobody saying a word. They already know this, and so they throw things out there often as kind of like a bone to something, right? They will let you know what they're going to do, but they will not let you know when they're going to do.
Not exactly. Chances are,
right? Chances are like 2030. Think about 2030. That means 2030 they will have accomplished everything much more than what they have a mandate for 2030. Even right now, Pascal, the changes that are taking place right now, it's almost like nobody can stop them. It's a sad thing to tell anybody, but who's been able to stop these globalist policies for the last 50 years?
No one.
No one. Not one human being has been able to stop them, right? So they appease people with what they think is happening. But when you look at the truth of the situation, something else is taking place. It doesn't matter what a person promises anybody; the same thing keeps happening.
Yeah.
And that's one of my major cautions is why God's people need to call out on the living God through Christ, not mankind, because mankind can be purchased. Let's go ahead and face it. All of us need money to stay functional in the earth,
right? And
you can buy people, right? Yeah. But nobody can buy the living God.
No.
So there you are.
Okay, so now this 2030 is a date that's kind of set out there. That we know they're marching towards something. Has the new, we're called New World Order for this purpose, but I mean the beast kingdom of the Bible. they're ahead of the game than what we know about. So, have they already chosen their leader? Do you believe that their leader is ready, just waiting for his moment, and they have a certain plan to unveil him? Is it something catastrophic? Is it something war, a pinnacle, a moment, a certain occultic day? Do they have their Antichrist guy ready to go?
Every foul spirit, before it's ever shown, is preceded by human carnage. Every single time. Right?
Wow.
I think they know what 2024 is about. This is a very significant month or significant year. And forget 2025. We're going to have enough to handle here now, right? I believe they're counting on the blindness of the people not to really see what 2024 is about. I believe they're counting on that. Now, all these foreign countries are getting ready. Why is it that the USA's view of the world is different than the rest of the world? Why is it that the USA has been wrong about the moves of all the
Because you've had the wrong leaders in power, that's why.
World for all these years?
Yeah.
And yet the loyalty base of the USA is beyond belief. In other words, when you listen to the pundits of what's going to happen in the world from the USA's point of view, it never turns out that way. But if you listen to other countries, right, what they're saying is absolute.
And guys, you know, with the trip to the moon, do you remember Nixon got on the phone and spoke to the guys on the moon? What, is there a phone box on the moon that they can ring Nixon in his White House? What a fraud that was.
Could be taking place. Something is happening here in this country. This country is a country that has a UN, right? They can complain about the UN all day. Then why house them? Why house the UN?
Yeah, why let them here? Why are they in New York City?
And why continue to protect them? Why continue to, do everything goes through the UN? It's just like before any war happens. Why is the Vatican always is always called upon? Before the Ukrainians were attacked by Russia, did not the Pope go down there and speak to them? Before this Hamas deal, wasn't the Pope in the Middle East? Didn't they have a conversation with the Pope? See, so before anything, so something else is going on beyond the eyes of what the average person would think. And it is steeped in spiritual mysticism and everything else. But these guys are demon worshippers. Yeah. They are, and they have been going ahead with their plans. Look at the policies. Look at the media, television, all that, right? Look at what Joe Biden did. You know what? That sickened me when what happened with Joe Biden, when he allowed that day, when he reaffirmed a declaration of that day on Easter. That should never have happened.
I should have never.
Right?
No.
Now, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if that date was set a long time ago. Yeah. Right? Then you tell those people, well, wait a minute. No, by executive authority, nothing is going to happen on Easter except Easter.
Right. He could have done that
date out of Easter. Right. You don't. That's a mockery. That's an absolute mockery.
Blasphemy. It's blasphemy.
But and you know what? Look. Half this country, I say 3/4 of this country, clapped their hands at it.
Yep.
3/4 of the country said, "All right, finally." So that tells you what shape we're in. It also should show and demonstrate to everybody what's coming. Is somebody coming forward? You better believe it, because iniquity is going to rise to a specific level, and then this thing will come. And in fact, when God's people begin to really fall away, when they start getting so tired that they start giving up. Now, a person who's with Christ may not give up openly, right? But people are going to start hitting a point, Pastor Paul, when they get real tired of things happening in the world, that they're going to start losing hope. They just won't tell anybody. When this takes place, there'll be more room for this thing to operate, because no beast is going to operate in the presence of the Holy Ghost, and the Holy Ghost inhabits God's people. So God's people that number has to go down before this thing can even come forward. Satan can't do anything in the presence of the Holy Spirit. So even in the Bible, it says there must come a falling away first, and then the tradition will be revealed.
That's right. That's what it says. Now, let me quote for you. This is from my book. I love it. in chapter 3. This is a quote. Some of the biggest men in the United States in the field of commerce and manufacturing are afraid of somebody. They're afraid of something. They know there is a power somewhere so organized, so subtle, so watchful, so interlocked, so complete, so persuasive that they had better not speak above their breath when they speak in condemnation of it. And the man that said that was President Woodrow Wilson.
Wow.
And that's what, 100 years ago or
Wow.
something close to that?
That's the king of the world.
He knew then.
That's the king of the world.
This guy's setting up the president. He's sitting in the Oval Office. And he's saying, there's something so dark. There's an demonic organizational, so dark, so demonic, you better not breathe it. And he wrote it down. He wrote this down before leaving office. He wanted to somewhere let it be known that he knew about it, but you better not say anything about it. This is how much stronger is that force now than it was in the days of President Woodrow Wilson?
It's that's an impassable. That's a force nobody's going to tangle with. Nobody has power. Think of it this way: think of a person who drifts away from Christ and they go to worship Satan, right?
Yep.
Satan rules by fear. That's how he rules, by fear. He lures people by promises. He rules by fear and threats and everything else. These guys, they get under that power. They're afraid to move left or right because they have families. Now, if they do everything they're supposed to do, they can continue to live in society. There's an example every single month from the king of the world among these people who make a lot of money. There's an example. Anybody who steps out of line is going to be made an example. But think of this. What if there a power existed that could cause a person to age 60 years in 2 seconds? What? And everybody could see it. I mean, just think of a power like that. Who's going to mess with that power?
Nobody's going to mess with that.
Who can, it was explained to me one time that if anybody ever crossed the line, they could be sitting in a meeting, right? And in this meeting, that same person in the meeting lasts 20 minutes. This person, in the course of maybe 2 minutes, would have suffered 80 years, right? Nobody would know it. This person would be in somewhat of a trance, changing the entire time. To them, their experience would be to have suffered.
Do you mean Paul Sanders? Do you mean him?
To have been suffered cruelly for 80 years. And then only 2 minutes would have passed. Then they come back, everybody notices they're gray. They're just scared to death, right? They're about to get hospitalized. They can't speak or anything. But their experience was that they suffered for 80 years. Like somebody beat them and tortured them for 80 years. Think about that. Now,
go ahead.
If something can exercise power like that over anybody, nobody's going to mess with that power. Nobody's going to do that.
No.
If something had that type of power to do, nobody's going to do that. And that power is yet to surface, right? That is the power everybody is waiting on. The core of that power is about to surface. That power. And it has not surfaced because nobody would ever make a mistake in recognizing that power. Everybody would know that power just by just gazing at it. Everybody would be able to recognize that power. Everybody.
Yes.
But that's said to happen very soon.
All right. So, excuse me. So we have a world. We have a sun that's very volatile. We're in a solar maximum. We're in a solar cycle that's beyond bizarre. I just saw the meteorologist today in the National Weather Channel. I just flipped to the channel, I happened to hit it, then I went to research and I found more info. And we wanted to find out from you about it. This guy said that never in history have we seen the seas, the temperatures of the ocean, the jet stream, the ocean currents. El Nino's gone. There's nothing resistant. This is the perfect storm scenario for the worst hurricanes, cyclones, and typhoons that we've ever seen. The condition for it is the worst ever. This will be the most dangerous time of humanity. And I was watching, there's red alert, breaking news on the National Weather Channel. On the web. And I said to myself, I got to ask Mike, what are they talking about? How can it, what caused this? Is this part of Planet X? Is part of the, I mean, is this part of the, why the sun's erupting and changing? Is the volcanism coming up and heating the oceans? Is the gravitational pull? What's going on here?
Well, what's happening to the sun, which started in 1933, is external. That's external.
Okay.
So and it has the forces have doubled since then, since 2008. So that's external. Something is affecting the entire solar system.
Okay.
The entire solar system. Because not only Earth is having all these dramatic changes, right? They won't really talk about the other planets like that. They monitor the other planets.
But they're affected too.
So they know.
They're
yes,
affected
they are.
too.
Yes,
So,
they are.
but there's
yes,
nobody there, Mike. There's no men there causing global warming.
Right.
Why is Mars?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. So this entire solar system, right, is feeling those effects. And our sun is one of the telltale signs something is changing, because in the last few years, everything has gone off the scale. Everything is different. Everything is premature. So in other words, it's not happening. They trend things, right? So they say, there's a solar cycle every 11 years or something like that, right?
Right.
Well, all that's different now. It is not every 11 years. They say the peak happens midway. All that's changed. It's different now. And this is being caused externally. Right? Because also Jupiter is changing. At the same time, the sun is changing.
Okay.
Right? So something external is happening.
Okay.
Anytime you have more than one object changing at the exact same time, there's an external force upon them both.
Yeah.
So these gas giants are certainly interacting with something at the same time.
Something big out there.
There you go. So there's a massive influence upon us, which means our time is pretty short. And believe it or not, the warning of something like that is almost impossible to actually warn about. First of all, nobody's authorized to do it, right? They're very careful about information. The meteorologists coming up with all these terms, if you notice, there are certain areas that they stop talking in. They're not allowed to cover certain areas anymore, right?
Yeah.
So it's almost like a gag order in certain things. But everything is changing in the Earth, and this is going to be this year, 2024. People will begin to see what weather is capable of. Weather will be the direct enemy of mankind, and the winds are coming past the ball. The winds are coming. The winds are coming, and so is the water. Right after the insects take flight, the waters are coming. Wow.
Okay.
The water's coming.
Okay. Now, just a couple, 2-3 days ago, we had these incredible 50 tornadoes. We had straight line winds in Kentucky at over 100 miles an hour. The National Weather Service went down. 122 offices was non-functional. And I'm wondering, was that deliberately being done, or is there some kind of radiation or some kind of shortage or something messed up, or was this a deliberate? What's going on, Mike? What in the world?
They're not going to say it. That's Paul, we're being hacked just about every single day.
Okay.
The networks are overwhelmed. They're dealing with internal traffic and things that we've not dealt with before. There are obviously people on the inside, right? Communications are not guaranteed. They're not. So they were receiving data from the satellites. The problem was the internet. That was the problem. They could not redirect their data points through the internet. So we have some bad hacking problems here in the USA. Ultimately, this is going to lead to power plants and other places. I know nobody is supposed to say that, but this is the problem we're having. And this problem is internal. The hacking is not coming from overseas. The hacking is coming from within the USA.
Wow.
Somebody's using hop IPs to do all this, Pascal. So the trouble is already here. The enemy is of your own household.
Yeah.
We have the issue right now. We're in the middle of this right now.
They were planted. They've been they've been planted in here from different places, and some of them been homegrown from right here.
And this is probing. When somebody probes, they want to see what you're able to detect.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So they send the lower echelon individuals out there to do something, and when they're not caught, they know that you have no tactic into getting the right people, and then they go forward with the real stuff.
We're getting ready right now. Israel's expecting to get hit. Let me just read. Here's a comment from the Biden administration. First of all, Mike, today, Iran, Yemen, Syria, Iraq, and Lebanon held military drills. 3,000 boats in the Mediterranean and around the Gulf of Oman in what they're calling preparation for the Palestinian Intifada. Now, this is all because of the Israel hit the fake consulate over there in Damascus and killed their 3 top generals and 4 leading officers. This was a big deal. Biden administration made this comment a few hours ago. They said, we told Iran we had nothing to do with Israel's attack in Damascus. Don't attack any of our bases or resources. We had nothing to do with it.
Wow, begging Iran not to attack. That's pretty bad.
It is Israel. I mean, my question is, that's backstab. That's turning your back on your friend. Even if Israel is the one who did it, for you to say, I didn't have nothing to do with it, it's all his fault. I don't want to. Can you believe that came out of the White House?
Yes, and it's also confirmation, right, of intercepted communications. You don't say something like that unless you have seen somebody else's plans that they're coming to get you.
Yep. Okay.
So that was a response. So that's confirmation that somebody's coming to get the USA, right?
Yep.
Somebody's coming to get us.
We're running scared.
You know what? It's Pastor Paul. It's like 9/11, right? Yeah. Something was wrong that entire month, and nobody wanted to hear it. Where people warned, you better believe it. Nobody wanted to hear it. Doesn't really matter where it came from. They knew it was going to happen, and nobody wanted to hear it.
Yeah.
Right. Right now, surely I'm not the only one out there telling people to be vigilant. We're going to get hit by something. It's already begun. Right there at the 40-day mark, a boat slams into a bridge. I hope nobody thinks that was just a wacky
no, I'm with
outage.
you. That was definitely a terrorist attack.
Right. And then, it's the first of many things that will take place. But you're going to have people out there say, don't worry. Don't worry. It's not about worry. It's about being vigilant. It's about understanding what time you're in. It's about the declarations in Revelation. God's prophecies are going to come to pass, and that includes the beast and the kingdom of the beast.
Yep.
And the Bible even said we're not going anywhere until that beast is revealed. It doesn't mean we have to go shake his hand. It means we have to know that a beast came here on this earth. And so you got a lot of people out there saying, oh, no, we're not going to see any trouble. I tell you, stay away from folks like that. Be vigilant. Do exactly what the Lord leads you to do. Be that individual that will listen to the Most High. Don't listen to the crowd this time. People are going to have to go with the Spirit on things.
Amen.
Right? The world's not going to know anything. They're going to this eclipse. They're going to gather like it's some sort of and when the world makes over an event, there's nothing. If they're thinking one thing about this event, I hope that God's people realize that the Creator set all this in motion. The Creator did this. This is not man's doing. No. This is the Creator's doing. And then of all the places, right? What somebody said, they were talking about the path of the sun, of the shadow of the sun on the earth. They said, well, it's going to alter a little bit. Well, it doesn't matter. It's an established path. But here's a significant part to me. Of all these towns that have these biblical names, people are coming to gather in those places.
Yes, they are. Yes,
they're coming to gather in the places that have biblical names, and they have the same disposition of those places that they had in the Bible.
In other words, they're
what in the world?
They're committing the abominations that the Bible said don't you dare do. The very people who are doing them are going to the biblical locations as if they're tempting God. I mean, it's unreal. Why would you do that?
You know what? They're just following the world. Right. Yeah. And anytime a person follows the world, they're going to end up in a devilish situation. Right? The world's leading them to slaughter is what's happening.
God was not.
It's almost like and this is almost like a recreation of ancient times happening yet again. And I hope that God's people are paying attention, because God didn't make a mistake. This was planned from the beginning of time.
Yes,
this eclipse was always going to happen. It was always going to take place.
Yep.
And so it's not, a lot of people, that day, when that day comes, somebody asked me the other day, what are you going to do on that day? I said, absolutely nothing. I don't feel anything concerning that day. I feel as zero concerning that day, right? Nothing. I just have nothing. I have nothing. And I said, but that day marks something. You better believe it.
Yeah.
The eclipse does not happen for no reason.
No.
And that's one of God's signals in the sky.
That's right.
For all who would seek him out, they'll have some understanding behind it. Something will take place. That's going to mark something, right?
Yeah.
We don't know exactly what, but it's going to be major. It's going to mark something. And it's not going to be usual. And if God's people pay attention, right? Every time God's people pay attention, they're spared. Every time God's people ignore what the Lord does, they face doom themselves. Every single time that happens. Every time.
Amen. And so this is God speaking to us. This is God's put this, like you said, in the motion from the dawning of time. He's not going to change it. He's right on time. We have to decide what kind of condition we want to be in.
That's right.
God's ready to meet us. Well, what kind of shape are we in? And I think it's a defining hour. I think that when Billy Graham, back in 2013, in that interview with Troy Anderson, when he said, Billy was 94 years old, and, Troy got to go to his home, and he's sitting there with the man of God, and he said, what do you see coming for America? Can we ever have a revival again? And Billy Graham said, yeah.
Okay, here's the problem. Billy Graham was a 33rd Mason degree. There's no way Paul Begley couldn't know that. Franklin died worth $29 million. Did he invent something, or did he rob God's collection plate? Man, there you go. This is why we don't watch Paul regularly, guys.
We can. God is going to give America its Nineveh moment. If man changes his heart, God will change his mind. Well, and I know that Billy Graham, there's no way he knew about these two eclipses coming 11 years later and the Nineveh cities. There's no way he knew that. But he was speaking prophetically that there was an hour coming when literally we would have. Look, this is a signal. This is a sign. But in the days and weeks hereafter is the real moment that we have to ask ourselves, what are we going to do with this? And Christians got to do what they got to do, and that's be ready. But boy, America has.
Are you talking about Paul's ring? I haven't been able to see it correctly, but it does look suspiciously square, like a mason's apron.
The chance about, is it too late? Is it too late? That's what I'm asking you, Mike. Is it too late? Or have we gone too far? Is there any way we're going to turn back? Or is this prophecy fulfilling itself of the coming of the beast kingdom in play?
Pastor, Judges 10:13 and 10:14, right?
Okay.
Before I even looked at those scriptures, I couldn't get them out of they're just in me, right? I couldn't get them out of my head. And I think a lot of people, they're determining their loyalty now. They're showing their faith now, right? If people are going to cry out for the living God, they're not going to cry out for any alternative.
No.
That means God's children, right? Whoever loves the Lord, if they really love the Lord, they're going to ask for the Lord, right? They're in servitude to the Lord.
Absolutely.
What man has been serving is what they're going to have to call on. Whatever man has been serving, that's what they're going to have to call on. That's what they're going to be stuck with. Whatever they've been loyal to, that's what they're going to be stuck with to save them.
Let's read the verse. Here it is, folks. Judges, verse 13 and 14. Yet you have forsaken me and served other gods. Wherefore, I will deliver you no more. Go and cry unto the gods which you have chosen. Let them deliver you in the time of your tribulation. That's pretty plain. That's a fact, isn't it? So I guess is that the answer is it too late? Well, it was too late for them, wasn't it?
It was too
for
late.
those who they just continue to seek man out, not the Lord. They forgot about the Lord. Same thing happened in Jeremiah.
Yep.
They forgot about the Lord. They sought themselves,
Forsaking the fountain of living waters, they hewn themselves out cisterns or wells that were broken that could hold no water. Imagine that. It's one thing to walk away from a good thing, but then go create something that's worthless and believe in that instead of having a good thing. Yeah, I know. It's a time like we've never seen before.
Yes.
Mike, so you give us the 40-day answer. Can you tell me what's going to happen in the next 30 days?
Well, after the bugs, right? After the bugs take flight, the waters are coming.
Okay.
That's my belief. The waters are coming.
Okay, and so again, you talked about that a lot. And obviously, this is caused from an external wave or external forces. Am I right?
Yeah, partially on that.
Okay.
But that water is not going to be a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you.
We are very close to a water event. We're close to that water event, the actual water event, and it's not going to make noise. It's not going to be from a usual cause. Unfortunately. Yeah.
Do you think, are we getting ready to see now the Middle East war expand in a greater way?
We will.
Mm-hmm.
We will. You know, two things can happen right now, and two things can happen. Due to the persistence in the Middle East, right? Due to that persistence, either the regime in Israel will be removed. If it's removed, I'm telling you now, Israel is going to be totally disarmed, and they're still going to get assaulted, period.
Right.
Nobody's going to stop the assault. If the current regime stays in power, they're going to have to fight their way until the moment they're totally taken over. Right? Because what has happened now is the world has assembled against Israel. Israel has no allies, not one ally. They have no allies. If something were to happen to Israel right now, the U.S. would hesitate many days to intercede, right? Both the Democrats and Republicans, they do not want further aid to the Ukraine or to Israel.
No,
they do not. So they've already announced their heart concerning that matter. They do not want to fund Israel. They do not want to fund the Ukraine anymore. They're washing their hands of it. That's both parties.
Yes.
And so this is where we are, right? In other words, we don't want to help anybody anymore. It's too sticky of a situation. And you know what? That's when friends are defined. Friends are not defined when things are easy. Friends are defined when you're in the middle of a crisis. Whoever remains your friend when you're down and out in the middle of a crisis, that's a true friend. A true friend are not the ones that come around when everything is good. Your true friends you can only know in the middle of a crisis when the chips are down. And when the chips are down, the U.S. is bailing out. I hate to say that, but the U.S. is bailing out.
Yes, they are. I just read the statement from the Biden administration. They're bailing. They're pointing fingers. They go get them. It's not our fault. Don't touch us. They're the ones. They just bailed. They just bailed. Mike, wow. Powerful show tonight. 10,000 people are watching right now. It was very powerful. And I can tell you this. The question was, is it too late?
Yep.
The answer is
yes.
Yeah, it could be too late for America, but not for humanity and not for you, not for me. But it could be too late. We may have gone too far. I don't know. What?
Man, I never thought I'd see this day, but Paul's right. It's gone way too far.
That's the way you see it.
Yeah, that's one of those. That's God's declaration, and you know what I believe. I could say no, it's not too late.
Yeah.
If God's children declare it so.
That's it. It's an end of a moment again. Right? So we're back to
That's right. If God's children declare it so.
That's right. We can. God can do anything. I don't have any doubt in my mind of His capability or His will. I just want to know what we're going to do, because what we do is going to determine what God does. Yeah. That's where we're at. That is the honest to God truth.
That's the honest to God truth.
Mike, I appreciate it. It's been a great show. I really appreciate you coming on, being with us, and
Hey, the eclipse is going to take. We're going to have the post-eclipse show next week. We'll see where we stand then, won't we?
Oh yeah, yeah, we will. We will.
Thank you for coming on, be with us tonight.
Okay, guys, I'll finish with Steve Cioccolani. Already loaded him.
How would you like the opportunity to win a $10,000 trading account? Yours to trade with absolutely free. That's right.
There's so many patterns, not just one thing, not just one
Start a flexible side gig with Amazon Flex and know what you'll earn. Sign up now.
Living is presence. Living is emotion. Living is waking to a dream.
If God had to make signs to wake up the church, I don't think we could get more of a sign. This is more than any generation that we have seen.
We're going to mention a little bit about the solar eclipse because it's really going to affect us and particularly your church. Pastor Bowles has a vision to prepare for this.
Okay, this is my favorite pastor, guys. He's up to date on everything. Everything something happens, he's only like 12 hours away on posting it. This is by far my favorite pastor, and I love he's Australian. That's not why I love him, though.
40 days after this is Pentecost. So Pastor Bowles has had it on his heart to prepare you somehow, come together, prayer, worship, whatever you feel led to do. But I think that's probably, you're going to be one of the most prepared people in this nation.
100%.
If you do that, you're going to be really ready.
Yep.
God's giving a final warning by giving drawing an X. X marks the spot. The spot is the USA. That's wonderful. God loves us. God made a
post his link. Hang on.
I think there's a reason why. We're going to explore that a little bit. It started back in August 21st, 2017. There was a total solar eclipse that went over only the 48 states, the continental United States. It's very special. That's rare to happen. And then another one went across. It started over in Mexico, went up to Canada. It's coming April 8th, 2024. We're days away. There's an X right over. I marked a little fire there just to show you the flood, and then the fire in Texas was marked out by 2 of the 3 solar eclipses. 2 of the 3 solar eclipses marks out this region in southern Illinois. We'll talk about it. And then 2 of the 3 eclipses marks out Oregon. We don't know yet what's going to happen in Oregon, but 3 places have been marked out. Texas has already been fulfilled. It spells Aleph. You can see that kind of upside down or toppled A. That's the Aleph. Represents a bull or a leader. Right? The Tav used to be spelled like a cross. So the leader, the bull, the sacrifice, and the cross. What does that show you? Picture of Jesus Christ spelled over the United States. I want to show you some new stuff that you may not have heard before. I believe this is a real warning, a last warning. Why do I believe that? There's so many patterns, not just one thing, not just one solar eclipse would spook us out. It's not a pagan sign. It's not a pagan celebration. It's something that God has designed. Genesis chapter 1, verse 14. Then God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night, and let them be for, say with me, signs and seasons. And why not season first? Why sign first? Right now, the word sign also matches with the Hebrew feasts. All right, they are given to us as signs, symbols, pictures that point to Jesus and the main events of his first coming and second coming. So we pay close attention to these solar and lunar eclipses only when they coincide with the other side, the Hebrew calendar, and they're all lining up right now. So that's why we're going to pay attention. According to the Talmud, the solar eclipses are a sign for the Gentile word. This is in Sukkah chapter 29. And since America is the leading Gentile nation, a sign for the USA would be considered a sign for the...
Okay, the Knights Templars, aren't they the Rosicrucians? I'm pretty sure the Knight Templars are the Rosicrucians. which aren't good, guys.
Whole Gentile world. Would you agree?
Yep.
We're marked out. Are you paying attention?
Yep.
Okay. Am I going too fast?
Nope.
Do we need to pray for you
Yes.
and me?
Yes.
Heavenly Father, give us ears to hear, eyes to see, minds to be receptive. Make my tongue the pen of a ready writer, Lord, and let your Lord Jesus Christ be glorified today. In Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen. These signs point to Jesus. We're living in exciting times.
Yeah.
No other generation got this. No other nation got this. We should be excited about this, not scared.
Yeah.
So the April 8th, 2024 eclipse will cross over 11 Ninevehs and 1 Jonah, obviously pointing to the sign of Jonah. Could this be the sign? The sign of Jonah also was preceded by an eclipse before Jonah went to preach, which was preceded in itself. That sign, that solar eclipse, was preceded by a plague and then followed by a plague. I believe that's exactly what's going to happen. A plague came before the coronavirus. I can't even say that on YouTube. I say it, they demonetize me, they ban me, they flag me immediately. There's another name I cannot say. I'm going to say it later. The moment I say it on YouTube, it gets flagged. They protect certain narratives. You wouldn't know that unless you're a creator on these social media platforms. There's a path sign. Let's take a look at the path. I've already mentioned this. Let's review it. The 2017 solar eclipse path crossed over 7 Salems in Oregon, Idaho, Wyoming, Nebraska, Missouri, Kentucky, and South Carolina. Actually, this is a bit of a misnomer. 7 Salems, they're not all towns. One of them is a Salem cemetery. Not a good sign. The 2024 path also crosses over 7 Salems in Arkansas, Illinois, Kentucky, Ohio, and 3 in Texas. Salem obviously is a contraction, an abbreviation of Jerusalem. Right? Jerusalem. It's supposed to be the city of peace, but it's full of war all the time until Jesus comes back. But it also symbolizes for U.S. history the Salem witch trials. So there was a witch hunt. There's a witch hunt right now going against Donald Trump and all of his entourage. You have Peter Navarro just had to check himself into jail, and all sorts of people that helped him, advised him, donated to him. They're all being persecuted in what Trump himself called a witch hunt. I don't think Trump realizes, I don't think Trump knows that there have been eclipses starting since 2017 till now that are speaking about what he's going through.
It's true.
If we had eyes to see, like if we said back in 2017, I wonder what 7 Salems mean. Well, 1 Salem, the witch trial, 1 Salem witch trial wasn't very good. We got 7. We've never heard anybody getting a fine of $400 million. Isn't that cruel and unusual?
Yeah.
Isn't that a witch hunt by definition? A bond so big that you can't pay it. And once you pay it, you don't know if you ever get it back. Most of the time, people don't get it back. That's a witch hunt.
Wow.
The 2 eclipses also form a giant X in the middle of Little Egypt, southern Illinois. It's just a region, it's not a town. Now, look at this. On average, any given location on Earth would see a total solar eclipse once every 400 years. Once every 400 years, you'd have an opportunity, wherever you live, to see a solar eclipse. But Little Egypt in the USA will see 2 solar eclipses in the span of only 7 years. That is not common. That is, by definition, unusual, something we're supposed to pay attention to. 7 is reminiscent to me of the 7 fat cows and the 7 lean cows. In other words, God gave this picture that there would be 7 years of plenty in the book of Genesis, and then 7 years of scarcity or famine. I think that's very much the picture that we're supposed to understand, decipher. Is there is plenty has come, and now there's going to be scarcity, and something that Americans are not used to. And I think it's going to be on the order of a global famine. So it's going to be much worse and much more difficult to sustain yourself through than just having a few months of, long life food. I think that's good. I know some of you have come up to ask, should we have long life food? Yeah, I think you should. But I think it's more than that. It's going to take more than that. You have to pray about that, what that means for you. There's more. There's more to this eclipse. It's really so gracious of God to tell us so much. The path with itself is no accident. Look at this. The 2017 path was exactly 70 miles wide. 7 times 10,
Wow.
completed justice. 7 is complete. 10 refers to the law of justice. 70 miles wide, completed justice, denoting a release of bondage. The Bible talks about that. Just write down those references. The 2024 eclipse coming on April 8th is different. It's 120 miles wide. Again, these are all biblical numbers. You can recognize all these throughout the Bible. But you see 120, prophecy teachers like me, right away we think of the 120 Jubilees. Earth has been given, Adam and his children have been given 120 Jubilees. It's a weird thing. Gentiles don't think that way. But the Jews think in cycles. Cycles. And Jubilee is a cycle that's been marked out in the Bible. 50 years. Everyone say 50. A lot of 50 in the Bible. Jubilee is 50. Pentecost is 50. This eclipse relates to both the Jubilee and the Pentecost. It's all like just this conjunction of many, many patterns and signs. 120 miles wide corresponds to 6,000 years in God's 6,000-year plan for mankind. That's why the earth was, the universe was created in 6 days, and Adam was given 6 days, and then he was created, and it is a projection or a prophecy of the fact that we would get 6,000 years. 120 is also the number of believers at the day of Pentecost. Pentecost means 50 days. Pentecost is known as the Little Jubilee. Another name for this feast is the Little Jubilee. April 8th eclipse marks a new beginning. It's the eve of the Hebrew New Year, Nisan 1. Again, if we look at our calendar, we don't see any rhyme or reason. We're not really sure what the pattern is. As soon as you go to the Hebrew calendar, you realize, whoa, wait a second. The year stops, a new year begins, and the solar eclipse is right in the middle of that. God did that. Amen? Our God, no other God, made the sun, moon, stars, and you and me. 40 days after the eclipse of April 8th, as Jonah warned, remember, it's a sign of Jonah. Jonah says, Nineveh, you get yet 40 days, and you will be destroyed. If that's taken literally as a sign of Jonah, add 40 to April 8th, and you come to the eve of Pentecost. You can't make this stuff up. It's not even, the Jews wouldn't even agree with our Pentecost. It's our Pentecost. It's their new year. It's a sign for both sides. Amazing. Is that amazing or not?
Yep.
What does it take to amaze you? God is amazing.
Matchmasters is awesome. I love playing against real people.
You suck at this game.
Stop it. Jubilee signs. It just keeps going. The 3 eclipses occur over the nation, uniquely founded on the biblical principle of liberty. We were made for freedom. We were freedom-loving people who fled tyranny and came to live in freedom, to form a nation of Jubilee. Right? Jubilee is the declaration of liberty in the Bible, according to Leviticus 25. The USA, by no chance, no accident, has a Jubilee number of states, 50. So we're not taking Puerto Rico, all right? We're not going to make Puerto Rico a 51st state, all right? We like Jubilee. It's 50 states in the United States of America. Jubilee is also a town in Nova Scotia, Canada, that is 3 miles from the last Nineveh that will be marked out by the total solar eclipse. Isn't that amazing? So Jubilee is there. Rapture also is there, and Jubilee is there. They're all Bible names. How is that possible? I mean, if this went over China, you're not going to get these names. You're going to get, Shanghai and Beijing and Qingqing and I don't know what else. So it ain't going to make any sense. It had to be over the United States. Does that make sense? What does it take to impress us? This is impressive stuff. The first eclipse, 2017, occurred on the 5th Jubilee cycle of the Jubilee nation. Okay, so you count our nation was birthed 1776, but it's not a full year, so we're going to count from 1777. Add every 50 years. It's a significant thing. In the 4th cycle was 1917. That had to do with the Balfour Declaration that Israel would become a nation. Marked out from 1777, 50, 50, 50. You come to Israel's rebirth, you add another 50. You come to Jerusalem being regained. You go to another 50. It's 2017, and it's the 5th Jubilee cycle of this nation. 5 is a number of grace. I hope you know all this. I'm going real fast with numbers. 5 is a number of grace. And we sing, God shed his grace. The only nation that sings this, God shed his grace on us. The 2024 eclipse occurs as Israel is engaged in its first major war in 50 years. All the signs are pointing to the same thing, war, war, war. 50 years ago, in 1973, the Yom Kippur War began on the Day of Atonement, which is the only day that the Jubilee can be declared. And by the way, I've been to 50 nations, and it is my Jubilee. So as a missionary, I've gone to a Jubilee of nations, and I'm going to have my Jubilee birthday. Hallelujah. You can't make this stuff up. Why are we in Mississippi? Must mean something. And then the last week, I was preaching in Mobile, Alabama, and they told me that their city is called the Jubilee City. Who planned that? When I moved over to Florida, I didn't even know where Mobile, Alabama was. And I've been there, I think, I preached there 5 times. I've been there 4 times, preached 5 times. Number of grace. God is shedding grace on us. If we would have the humility to listen, then we would receive the grace. But if we're proud, if we're going to say hard-hearted, then only pride and destruction will come. How we respond matters. It hasn't ended. I'm just talking about this sign. There's another amazing conjunction. There's a comet that's going to be visible at the same time as this solar eclipse, April 8th. During the eclipse, a bright comet named 12P Pons Brooks will be visible in the neighboring constellation of Aries. Now, don't get hung up with astrology, okay? Because we don't like astrology. We hate astrology. But God made the Mazzaroth. These are the constellations that point to the gospel story. And what does Aries means? The Lamb. The comet comes in the constellation of the Lamb. So it's significant. It's not happenstance. It's not another comet. The comet was discovered by astronomer Jean-Louis Pons in 1817 and rediscovered in 1883 by William Brooks. That's why it gets the combo name. The name Pons means way. The meaning means way, just as Jesus is the way. He is the path to salvation and no other. Brooks obviously means flowing water, as in Noah's flood of judgment or Jesus's waters of life. Can take it both ways. Sometimes it both fulfills it. So Comet Pons Brooks orbit is just a little over 70 years. The years designated for the Jewish liberation from the Babylonian captivity. Again, these are not happenstance. These are all biblical numbers. If it happens to be, I don't know, some other number, 20, everything is biblical to me. If I have to pick a number that's a bit strange, like 138 or something, it would be random. 120, 70, 50, these are all biblical numbers. They have deep prophetic significance. The comet has outbursts. They don't really know why, but they have an outburst. Gets a little upset or angry or something. Just has outbursts of intense brightness that causes its shape to resemble horns. Now, the world misinterprets this, I believe. They call this the devil's horn. So they call this the devil's comet. To them, it will be a sign of the devil's comet. But to us, horns actually symbolize a bull. Doesn't it? The bull has horns. And guess what? What is the pattern drawn over the United States? The Aleph, which is the letter that means bull in the Hebrew language. Is that amazing? It gets better than that. In the Mazzaroth of the biblical zodiac, Taurus, the bull, is a picture of Jesus coming back to pierce his enemies. The USA is home to nearly half of the world's Jews. I don't know if you realize that. So it's believed to be the home of the scattered tribes of Israel. So the scattered tribes are collectively called the tribe of Ephraim. Judah's the southern kingdom, Ephraim's the northern kingdom. Collectively, the dispersed Israelites are called Ephraim. You get that? What did the Bible say is the sign of Ephraim? It's a bull. Deuteronomy 33, verse 17. So we have a comet that resembles a bull appearing above a nation associated with a bull, and it's marked by the Hebrew letter that is a picture of a bull with horns. Okay, finally you're impressed. Mississippians they're very slow to be impressed. All right, that's good. That's good. But I think we're at the threshold of like awesomeness and coolness. God is cool. Comet Pons Brooks will reach perihelion, or maximum brightness, as it enters the constellation Taurus the Bull. Yet another one. And after visiting Taurus, where does it go? Pons Brooks is going to enter the constellation Eridanus. I didn't even know this existed. Eridanus is the name that means River of the Judge. That's what we preached yesterday. Justice. All of this is heading to divine justice. God's going to right the wrongs. He's going to end suffering. He's going to judge evil. That's good. That's good news. I hear justice. I'm happy. This comet, Pons Brooks, is a remarkable sign by itself, but it's overlaid by 3 other solar eclipses that are also signs. The comet may help to explain the Aleph that's spelled across a bull nation or a jubilee nation, the United States of America. I believe, taken all together, it's a final warning.
Yeah.
There is no other sign, no conjunction of sign that this nation.
It's hard to disagree, isn't it, guys? This is a final warning.
Gets. We get it in our lifetime. It's an exciting time for us to live, and we better wake up. What are we supposed to do? I believe this completes the Jubilee, completes grace, completes judgment, and it is for America the sign of Jonah. The eclipse that comes before the great earthquake and then the coming of the Lord. That's what it looks like. That's what I believe it represents, war and fire and some sort of great reset. If you like numbers, you're going to love the Divine Code. It was a bestseller. A lot of people use it as a reference book. The Divine Code, I've got 2 volumes because there's so many numbers. But for this church, we've got the combined volume, which is not available on Amazon. You can get any of my books on Amazon, but the combined volume is only here. So I hope you go check that out. I'll be in the back and meet you. If you like the design, a lot of people do like that design. That's our own special graphics. We put on a T-shirt, and all my family's going to wear this. Alexis, come and show us the T-shirt, because we just got it. We weren't sure what it's going to turn out like, and it looks really nice. We're all going to wear this when we go to Texas. And when people ask us what it means, they think it's a pagan celebration. We're going to say, no, it's a sign from God.
Amen.
So that's what it looks like. Well, you're already modeling. You don't want to show your face first? This is my beautiful Alexis. Turned 15 years old this year, which means in Florida she can drive, which means that I'm getting old. That is a sign of getting old, when your kids can drive, I think. No? That's beautiful. Well, that means that she's going to be even a bigger helper. So I think it's really clear. You got 1776 and 2024. You got the 3 eclipses. I mark out Oregon, Illinois, and Texas. That's pretty bold. Like, I'm trying to tell you, I'm trying to make it so that people can say, hey, this is false. You said, and it didn't happen. I want to be like that. I want you to.
That should be on the front of the T-shirt, not the back.
To dare to call me false, because I believe it's going to be fulfilled in such an exact way. So we put the 3 lines.
Good night, Shawnee. Good night, guys.
Final warning. So people see that it's a conversation started, isn't it? Thank you, dear. God bless you. I don't like V-necks, by the way. You might like V-necks. I don't like V-necks. So the men have the crew neck, okay? So V-neck looks great on ladies, but for us, we'll wear the round one. Okay, so that is an introduction about the eclipse to get you excited, to get you talking about it, to get you to talk to other people. It's just an excuse to say Jesus is coming soon. Why? Because only Jesus can coordinate all these, and it's not spelling Chinese characters. It's not spelling some.
Okay, guys, I'm out. God bless.
Hebrew, not spelling some Hindu character. It's spelling 2 Hebrew alphabets. That's amazing.